Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, in the chair and on the air as we kick off another week, the first full week of December. This December 4th, we have, 23 shopping days until Christmas, if my math is correct, and it's always suspect, so you never know. Double check me, but I think I'm right on that. We got a lot to talk about today, and very excited to get into the week because we're going to be pretty busy. This is the week, by the way, where we're going to have our event Thursday night out at the Cedar Creek Marina Scoreboard, so you can join us out there from 4 to 8 p.m. It's a Super Talk live event, and you can get all the details about the event at 997WTN.com. All right, so let's kick off a discussion of what's going on in the Mideast, because there's a lot of stuff going on with regard to the Middle East right now. One of the more controversial things, it really is not about the Mideast, but it's a comment made by a legislator from the United States by the name of Pramila Jayapal. And she was on the weekend shows, doing the Sunday talk circuit. And she said the following to Dana Bash over at CNN.
Frankly, morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians. Yeah.
All right, what's she talking about? She's talking about cases of documented rape against Israeli people who were captured by Hamas, women who were captured by Hamas and taken hostage. And on October 7th, many cases have been confirmed and documented of Hamas soldiers carrying out the atrocity of rape against women. And, she seems to say, well, there's some moral equivalency here between that act, which is not an act of war but should be, and anything that the Israelis have done in response. She doesn't want to, she acknowledges one barely, and then turns the corner and says, but what about all the things that have happened to the Palestinians?
The women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians. Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. Then now you have a great deal of condemnation of those comments, but the White House, who you thought would probably step up and say we strongly disagree with the Congresswoman, no. They went down the line. They tried to walk the line on this one.
Is that an appropriate comment?
So we've been very, very clear. You heard a little bit from Jake Sullivan about this. I can only speak for the president. That's who I can speak for. And we've been clear. What Hamas did is absolutely reprehensible and full stop. We're going to continue to be clear about that. And we think about, rape and the use of rape as being used as a weapon, that is also reprehensible, and that's full stop. And I'll just leave it there. And I'm speaking for the President of the United States. So I think I've been very clear on that.
Any comment, though, Congresswoman Jayapal?
I just commented on it. I just laid out what we believe is unacceptable.
Well, she didn't say anything about the comments to Jayapal that she made. No comment whatsoever. Here is Matt Miller at the State Department making as strong a statement as they can, but again,
we obviously condemn those atrocities and support Israel's actions to hold Hamas accountable for them.
Yeah, hold them accountable, but then no condemnation of the Congresswoman. I mean, honestly, can they not find it within themselves? Can they not find the moral fortitude to say something that is condemning, that actually strikes back at these reprehensible comments from the Congresswoman? Well, it just seems that that's not going to be possible. Other things, so many other things going on in the Mideast. There are talks about some attacks against our military ships in the area by Houthi drones. There was a response by U.S. military. They took out 3 drones that they thought might be headed toward one of their Navy ships.
As DoD has relayed, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Carney responded to the distress calls from these ships and provided assistance. In doing so, it detected 3 UAVs at 3 different times heading in its direction, and it took action against all 3 of those UAVs. As CENTCOM reported this weekend, we cannot assess at this time whether the Carney was a target, but the Carney took prudent action in taking down those 3 UAVs. And we will continue as we go forward to consult very closely with allies and partners to determine and take all appropriate responses. We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran. Any ship they shoot at, whether it's Israeli-owned or has some connection in the past to Israel, that doesn't make it any more of a justifiable target under international law than if the ship didn't have ties to Israel. But some of these ships, we believe, may not have, although I don't want to give you a definitive answer on that because we have to continue to run that to ground. In addition to that, the position of the United States, consistent with the position of the UN Security Council and consistent with the position of maritime nations across the world, is that attacks on commercial shipping in international waters are totally unacceptable and have to stop. And what we are doing now is engaging in intensive consultations with partners and allies to determine the appropriate next steps. The last point I should make is just to underscore something I said in my opening statement. We are talking about the Houthis here. They're the ones with their finger on the trigger. But that gun, the weapons here are being supplied by Iran, and Iran, we believe, is the ultimate party responsible for this.
We really don't talk enough about the attacks against U.S. servicemen and women in the region. We have all kinds of bases there. We have all kinds of activity there in the region, and we have had for years and years and years. But the attacks have been coming from Iran-backed proxies. And we don't really talk about it. I mean, we haven't, to my knowledge, have not lost any life yet, but we have had many injuries. And now they're sending drones in the direction of our ships out there, trying to patrol the region and bring some stability to that region. I'm telling you, it sounds like, that must be pretty difficult duty right now. And why are we not cracking down on Iran when it's so clear from all of their comments that they believe Iran is directly responsible for the weapons being used by the Houthis and other Iran-backed proxies in the region? Why are we not taking more action against Iran? Is trying to do, it seems, is walk a very fine line. While they clearly will say the things that they need to say with regard to support for Israel, They are very, very, it seemed two-minded about the approach that should be taken in this part of the world. Number one, they don't believe that the Israelis should just go all out. I don't understand how we can ask the Israelis not to go full on and trying to clean up Hamas after what happened on October 7th. But they clearly say, well, we got to be careful. We have to be really sure that we're taking care of the people who are not attached to Hamas. Well, who are these people? Are they truly independent of Hamas? Or are they sympathetic to Hamas? Are we trying to change the hearts and minds of people in this region? That's a very big task. Here's John Kirby trying to walk that fine line.
What's being done with U.S. military and security assistance is helping our friend and partner Israel go after a truly genocidal threat, a threat posed by Hamas. And I think it's just too easy as we get further and further away from the 7th of October to forget what happened on that day. 1,200 Israelis literally slaughtered, kids in front of their parents, parents in front of their kids. And we've got to help Israel eliminate the threat to the Israeli nation and the Israeli people from that threat, from Hamas, and we're going to keep doing that. Absolutely. Now, look, at the same time, just like you and I have been talking now for a few minutes, we want them to do it in the most careful, cautious, deliberate way possible. How they do this matters, as Secretary Blinken has said, and we're continuing to work with them. And again, I would stress that the Israelis have been receptive to those messages, and they have actually altered the way they have been conducting some of their operations. Now, I also want to say clearly, too many thousands of individuals, civilians, have been killed. Too many more thousands have been wounded. We have more than 1 million that have been internally displaced in Gaza. We're not blind to the humanitarian crisis, which is why we work so hard to get that pause in place for 7 days so that we can get hostages out and get an accelerated amount of food, water, medicine, and fuel into Gaza. So we're certainly working on the humanitarian plight here. But I think we've got to stay core to what happened on the 7th of October and remember the threat that the Israeli people are still facing from Hamas.
All right, there's John Kirby walking that line. And here is the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. And the thing that seems to be on her mind is not supporting 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now their newest facility in Mount Juliet. So call this number, 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEuroFix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, a former U.S. ambassador is cooling his heels in a jail cell today. And the weekend proved to be very dangerous to pedestrians in Nashville. We'll explain at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, that's Joan Jones filling in for Mac Maury. And Joan, if you got just a second, let me chat you up if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because you and I have a lot in common in that we both have escaped Washington, D.C. and have found ourselves, I wasn't born in Tennessee, but I got here as soon as I possibly could.
Yeah. We got out of the swamp.
That's right. Getting out of the swamp. It's amazing how quickly your perspective on things changes as soon as you get out of that, outside that beltway mentality, isn't it?
Yes, it's more of a relief than anything. It's been wonderful. Really, the people here are terrific.
Oh no, they're the best.
Yeah.
I mean, just a moment ago, I was whining with Matt Murphy about the Christmas tree dilemma that I have in my yard. I have a 27-foot inflatable Christmas tree that is the bane of my existence at the moment. Trying to get it back up right after a windstorm. So we're doing that, and immediately people started texting me, "Hey, I'll come over and help you. Don't worry." I mean, that's just the kind of folks
nice.
there. Yeah. But you worked at WTOP, and I worked at WMAL in the mornings.
Right down the street.
That's right. And WTOP is pretty much just a news powerhouse. And WMAL was more news opinion, probably,
Correct,
the best way to put it. But you and I have common, I don't think we've ever met. I don't think our paths have crossed, as far as I know.
Not that I know of.
No, but I mean, I certainly listened to you all the time when I was driving around the greater D.C. area. And you and I do have one very good common friend in Hillary Howard.
Oh, Hillary, yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
a sweetheart. Yeah, she and I used to work together at WTTG,
Wow.
the Fox affiliate there in Washington D.C. for a long time, and just adore her. And so if any friend of Hillary Howard is a friend of mine, so
It was lucky that we got to work together. I enjoyed. She was one of my mentors when I got there.
well now WTOP is known for being in a glass enclosed nerve center.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry that we don't have, such a grand facility there for you in our newsroom. There's no glass enclosed nerve center for it, but it's just a modest little closet. But
There's some glass in front of it. I have to clean it to get to see much, but it's fine.
yeah. And so tell me a little bit about what happened and how did you end up in Tennessee?
Well, I don't know that you heard this, but the industry scuttlebutt, the station offered buyouts for many of the anchors, and so I took them up on that. And then my oldest son, and his wife moved down here. They had a baby, and like I like to say,
Oh, now I know.
yeah, they won the grandparent lottery. So
Yeah.
they get
well,
the grandparents.
That's right. That's great, and it's good to have you here in the neighborhood. And occasionally, we understand, as I've been explained to me, you're going to be coming by now and then.
I will be. Yeah.
And we really appreciate it.
That's
Mac Morey has the day off, and so we won't be doing our wide world of sports with Mac Morey, but we do have some sports news we'll talk to at 5:20. Joan, it's great to have you in. You're doing a great job, and
You're kind. Thank you.
yeah, listen, and I got to tell you, I've had a mad respect for you and a lot of those anchors over there that I competed against at WML. Really, I mean, it's not really competition because
No.
WTO is such a powerhouse. It's just, as you said earlier with Matt Murphy, it's the most respected radio station in America, perhaps.
Yeah. And it's funny because when you're in Tennessee, you know nothing about that.
No.
So it doesn't make a hill of beans difference. But
No,
it's
it
so
doesn't.
nice to be here. My husband and I love it here.
All right. Well, it's good. It's good to hear your voice. I was brought up to speed a little earlier today about your presence here, and I'm just couldn't be more happy to have you coming by on occasion.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joan. Let's see. What else are we going to be talking about throughout the show today? I think we'll be doing 2024 news. A lot of news with regard to wokeness. There's a lot of wokeness news out there. Things that these are stories that, you'll hear them and you go, really, honestly, that just angers me. And then we'll be talking about Biden Incorporated, new developments in the investigation into Biden Incorporated. And that'll be coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. And so now it is, we'll call it 30 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, 3:30 now. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Pretty cloudy now. It's 56 and a bit windy, too. We've got your forecast along with traffic coming up. The Justice Department says they have uncovered a Cuban mole who fooled the U.S. for decades. Manuel Roca was a United States ambassador to Argentina and Bolivia and held other high-level positions in the State Department where he had access to critical information for decades. Well, he's retired now, but he was arrested last week at his Miami home for allegedly acting as a spy for Cuba.
Betray that trust by falsely pledging loyalty to the United States while serving a foreign power is a crime that will be met with the full force of the Justice Department.
That's Attorney General Merrick Garland, who says an undercover FBI agent recorded the 73-year-old allegedly bragging about his allegiance to the communist country and detailing his clandestine activity. A drone attack in the Red Sea has put U.S. warships on high alert. Houthi rebels, who are backed by Iran, are accused of firing on commercial ships, and the U.S. destroyed the drones. So what's the response plan by the U.S.?
We have made clear that the entire world needs to step up together, not the U.S. alone, but all of us working together to deal with this emerging challenge that the Houthis present, backed by Iran. We are going to take appropriate action in consultation with others, and we will do so at a time and place of our choosing.
That is White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who says the weapons used by the Houthis are clearly being supplied by Iran. A man who was hit and killed while trying to cross Nolensville Pike near Thompson Lane last night died of his injuries early today, becoming the third pedestrian fatality over the weekend in Nashville. Police say that the man was hit by a white Dodge Challenger traveling at a high rate of speed, and witnesses say the car never slowed down. Police are still looking for that driver. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
You know, at Genesis Diamonds, they are rolling back prices and finance rates so you can get headliner gifts for Christmas. I mean, maybe it's that pair of diamond earrings or that new designer fashion bracelet or that dazzling 2-carat diamond ring. It's all the more affordable because at Genesis, they've got special pricing across the board and 0% interest financing for 5 years. So you can get that $3,000 diamond pendant and pay just $50 a month, or that $6,000 eternity band for just $100 a month, or everything included in this amazing holiday offer, all GIA certified natural diamonds and all lab grown diamonds as well. Even the luxury pre-owned Rolex watches are in part of this deal. Imagine that $15,000 Rolex for just $250 a month. You could even finance the sales tax. Don't let talk of rising prices and high interest rates dampen your holiday spirit. At Genesis, they're lowering prices and taking interest rates down to zero. Get that amazing gift they deserve and make your money go further than ever. Merry Christmas from Genesis Diamonds, Green Hill and Cool Springs on approved credit.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee, right at home in the woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air here, bringing you news and information as you try to drive home. We'll try to give you information that you can use so that you arrive at home or wherever it is you're headed this evening is well informed. Walk in, you'll have some really interesting tidbit to share with the family or wherever you're around. That's our goal every day, to drive you home and get you there safely, but also maybe to drive the liberals just a little bit crazy. We want to move into our 2024 update, if we could, please, because there's a lot going on. You know, we're just 40-something days away from Iowa. The caucuses are not that far away. We'll be into it before you know. January 15th is what we're talking about. So, you know, we got to stay on this because we're about to get into the serious political season. And there's new polls out with regard to where Donald Trump stands. With regard, I say Donald Trump because yes, I know I am well aware that there are other people running for the Republican nomination, but honestly, it doesn't look like anybody else is going to be able to overcome Donald Trump. Let me just give you the Real Clear Politics average. Donald Trump sits at 61% on average, and for the Republican nomination. His nearest competitor right now is DeSantis at 13.3. Haley comes in at 10.2. Ramaswamy comes in at 5. And then there are some other people running as well. When you look at Iowa, the lead is not quite as much, but he's still got a 30-point lead over DeSantis. It's Trump 47, DeSantis 17, Haley 14. Haley coming on strong in Iowa and starting to get a little momentum. New Hampshire, if you look at New Hampshire, Trump leads by handily. Trump 45, Haley 18. Haley's in second place there. Christie at 11, DeSantis at 7. So there you go, just a little sort of a rundown on the Republican nomination. Incredibly difficult to overcome a 40 or 50-point lead. I don't care who you are. I don't care how good your campaign is. I don't care how well it's funded. As things stand today, it appears that Donald Trump was likely to be the nominee. Of course, you know, you never know what happens on the morrow, but right now it looks like a real heavy climb for anybody who wants to take on Donald Trump for the Republican nomination. Now, you know, talk about how does he shape up when you talk about the general election? New poll out from I&I and TIP. And they look at it two different ways. Number one, they look at it assuming that it's Trump versus Biden in a two-way matchup, strictly those two. Trump leads Biden by 2 in this poll. That's within the margin of error. But when you add in the other people who are likely to be on the ballot, and you do a 5-way assessment, 5 people running for the nomination, Trump actually does quite well. I mean, more of the other people running take away from Biden, much more than they take away from Trump. In a 5-way matchup, according to this new poll out today, Trump would win by 5, which is right on the margin of error. It's really hard to find many polls out there. There are a few here and there that show that Biden could beat Trump, but most of them go the other way right now. As far as Trump is concerned, his numbers are as good as they have ever been at this point in any kind of political season. So, it's looking good for Donald Trump, but that means that, they haven't really started aiming fire. We haven't gotten into the thick of it just yet. The former president predicts that Joe Biden and the anti-Trump Republicans really don't want him to be in the 2024 presidential election. I mean, you hear people say, oh, they want to go against Trump. They really think Trump's the guy that they can beat. But he says, well, they always say disinformation and misinformation, but they always say they want to really run against Trump. If they really want to run against me, they wouldn't have indicted me 4 times and fought like hell to keep me off the ballot. But the fake news and the stupid people of the Wall Street Journal editorial board, they said the other day, well, they really want to run against Trump. When these comments were made, it was 44 days away from Iowa's first in the nation caucuses. He says he'll be there. He says he will win. If all the polls are even close to being correct, that will be the case. And then we are off and running. I still have a hard time believing that Democrats are going to stick by Joe Biden. Now, making a change right now would be difficult, quite frankly, very difficult. Because you have a situation with with the way these polls are shaping up and the deadlines, you need to be, for example, you have to be on the ballot by certain dates. And so you're missing some of those if you try to make a change here in the very near future. In fact, some deadlines have already passed. But there's still the possibility of a brokered convention. And if the numbers continue to deteriorate for Joe Biden the way they have been deteriorating of late, I would not be surprised to see something happen. Kamala Harris, no, not likely. Someone else, who is it? I don't know. How's it going to happen? Can't tell you. I just feel very strongly that at the end of the day, the power brokers of the Democrat Party are not likely to stand by and allow Biden to be nominated when the polls look so bad. And so it looks as if he might really seriously take a big loss here, and Trump would be reinstated as president. He says, "We are going to simply make America great again. Crooked Joe Biden's banana republic ends on November 5th, 2024. A story from the Washington Examiner. National Republicans have chosen Wisconsin for a series of firsts during this presidential cycle. In August, the Republican National Committee held its first primary debate in Milwaukee, just a month after announcing that Wisconsin would be the inaugural state for its new early voting initiative. In a first for the organization in Milwaukee, it's holding its nominating convention in the city next July. We know about that, don't we, Nashville? Could have been us. Could have been us. The message is unequivocal. According to the Washington Examiner, Republicans are invested in Wisconsin, one of a handful of states that will decide who occupies the White House in 2025. Such efforts have failed to move the needle in past cycles. In 2012 alone, President Barack Obama lost North Carolina despite Democrats holding their convention in Charlotte, and Republican nominee Mitt Romney lost Florida despite a Tampa convention. Nevertheless, Republicans are betting they can make tangible inroads with voters by staking out a sustained presence in Wisconsin. The state is winnable for the GOP. Donald Trump demonstrated that in 2016 when he broke through the Democrats' blue wall to win 4 years in the Oval Office, but it's also a fickle state, with the state flipping to Joe Biden in 2020. As the two men appear headed for a rematch, the contest will inevitably be close. Trump won the state by 23,000 votes, only for Biden to win by a similar margin in 2020. So it can go either way. It's a really purple state. The RNC believes it can tip the scales back in the Republicans' favor next year with a strategy that is part charm offensive and part media blitz. The centerpiece of that strategy is the convention. And so as they start to do that, there's a lot of things going on in Wisconsin you won't necessarily hear about, but people in Wisconsin are hearing about it. They did a walkthrough of a Fifth Serve Forum, the sports arena, where tens of thousands of Republicans will flock to select their presidential nominee. It will dominate the news over those days in Wisconsin. It's a 4-day TV show that allows the GOP to broadcast to the country its values to the party, but also it will be highlighting that it's taking place in the state of Wisconsin. I think that the three states to watch on the Electoral College count right now are Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. Wisconsin because it's purple enough, and he's had some success there. If he wins Wisconsin as one of the the battleground states, that would be a real feather in his cap. In Minnesota and Michigan right now, even though they trend blue, you do have a situation where there are a lot of people that are within those two states that are really irritated with the Biden administration right now. And whether or not they will vote for Biden is one question. They may not vote for Trump, and maybe they don't vote at all. And I'm talking about large groups of Arab Americans who live both in Minnesota and in Michigan. And if they decide to stay home and sit on their hands, or if they actively go and vote for Donald Trump, that's very bad news for the Biden administration. Biden's campaign efforts will really suffer if he were to lose Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. And that's why, by the way, they're so squirmy about this whole Mideast thing, because they realize that every time they go out and say something strong in support of Israel, which they have done, that they are irritating a large voting bloc in both Minnesota and in Michigan. And so they always have to have a but in everything they say. Yes, we support Israel, and Israel has every right to defend it, but we need to be careful that we don't go too far. So they're really squirming, and that's why they seem to not be able to come out and say definitively one way or the other that they believe that Israel has every right to defend itself and support Israel 1,000% with no but added to the conversation. No, but on the other hand, let me also say, that's what you get. There's always a second statement saying, that we need to make sure that we don't alienate the Palestinian people. We need to make sure that that Israel fights this thing in a clean way and tries to limit the civilians who are injured. So they always have something to say, and it's because of those large voting blocks in Michigan and Minnesota. So there you have it. If they were to do that, and look, there's polls out there that say that Trump is leading in 5 out of the 6 swing states. Folks, I can't tell you how remarkable that is. I can't begin to tell you how remarkable it is that he's doing that, because at this particular point, now, things can change, and polls, I want to remind you, polls are only a snapshot in time. But what you look at with polls is you look at, say, well, this is where we are today. Doesn't mean we're going to be there tomorrow. But you also want to look at the trend line. Where have the polls gone over time? And I'll tell you what that trend line is. Biden going down and Trump going up. Trump has the momentum. Biden is fading. People are not happy about the economy. People are not happy about the border. People are not happy about being involved in all of these conflicts around the world. Even if we're not directly involved, we're still involved. We got men and women from the military that are at risk because of what's going on in the world. And honestly, I think that Biden will say, well, you can't blame me for the things that Putin has done. Yeah, you can in some ways, because if you had had a stronger response in Afghanistan, if that hadn't been such a horrific disaster, then perhaps Putin wouldn't have felt emboldened. Perhaps Xi would be acting better on the world stage as far as the South Pacific is considered. So, we've got all these things going on that are causing a lot of people around the country to just stop and pause and say, I don't like where the world is right now. I don't like where the economy is right now. I don't like what's happening on the border. And all of these things, whether it's fair or not, are put at the feet of the current president of the United States. That's what it is to sit in that chair. And I think as we go forward here, if those trend lines continue, it looks very good for Trump and it looks disastrous for Biden. And I still cannot believe that Democrats will throw Biden and Harris into the fray if the trend lines continue in the direction they're going now. But we'll watch it. And that concludes today's 2024 update. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships. Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
Up ahead on WTN, tensions rise in the Red Sea after a series of drone attacks, and they involve the U.S., and why families of Army and Navy football players are pretty ticked off at the White House. Those stories and more coming up at 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets and see how they're doing. Actually, all screens are red today after we've had a pretty good run on the markets of late. The Dow Jones Industrial down 41 points. The S&P is down 24 points. The NASDAQ down 119 points. Interestingly enough, gold hit an all-time high today of 2,100. That's on $2,100 an ounce, but it has dropped back a little bit. After that, it is down $41. It's right now an ounce of gold will cost you $2,048.60. So what's driving the markets right now? Let's check in with John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management for more on that. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, Brian, how are you? Yeah, the market is coming off a 5-week win streak, and it's taken a little bit of a step back today after that impressive run. Investors in the market, though, are really convinced that the Fed is done raising interest rates, and probably, in addition to that, convinced that the Fed's actually going to start cutting rates sooner than what they're anticipating, what they're communicating. But, Chairman Powell tried to cool the market's expectations on Friday, that he said it would be premature to say their work was done with interest rates. But a key report this week to watch for is the November jobs report. Cooling the labor market is a major factor in what the Fed is trying to do with interest rates and inflation. So, again, a little bit of a pullback today, but a key report to watch later this week.
All right. Thank you very much, John. And you can learn more about all the things they do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. I had a spot.
Currently, it is 4 o'clock here. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. 55 degrees now in Nashville. Traffic and a complete weather forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes. U.S. warships are on high alert after Iranian-backed rebels fired at commercial ships in the Red Sea. The Pentagon saying that the Navy then shot them down, shot down those several drones that were launched by the same Houthi group that's based in Yemen. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan at the White House briefing today addressed the activity there.
The White House says it's consulting with allies on appropriate action to take in response to the latest Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran.
Pushed on whether the retaliatory efforts so far by the U.S. to these kinds of strikes have been effective, Sullivan defended the administration's response, but acknowledged there has been what he called, quote, very alarming behavior. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Divers have recovered what's believed to be the remains of crew members and their crashed U.S. Air Force Osprey aircraft. It crashed near Japan last week, and all 8 American service members were killed. The Osprey aircraft have had a history of crashes. Now all flights of Japan's fleet of Ospreys have been grounded until the investigation into this one is complete. The White House is pushing back against protesters in Philadelphia who demonstrated outside of a restaurant that's owned by a Jewish family and serves Israeli food.
We've seen the increase of anti-Semitism, and we understand the fear that people in the Jewish community must be feeling right now, which is why we have taken action to do everything that we can to make sure that people in that community feel protected.
White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre. Republican Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, is demanding that the White House fix a problem that popped up in Massachusetts. Families who booked hotel rooms in Foxborough for the upcoming Army-Navy game have begun receiving cancellation notices. Fox News is reporting their reservations were canceled so the hotels can be used to house illegal immigrants who were transported there. Massachusetts has a right to shelter law. It says that migrants and homeless families must have somewhere to live. Got your Riz on? The 4-letter word has become Oxford's Word of the Year. It's a Gen Z word used to describe someone's ability to attract or seduce another person or their charisma, hence the Riz. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather coming up. I'm Joan Jones on WTN.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. Hour number 2 underway here for the drive on this 4th day of December, 21 shopping days till Christmas. So you got to get busy out there. We are we're in full on Christmas mode here at Stately Wilson Manor. We're we're in the middle of well, I don't know another way to put it. Christmas has just blown up in our house. We have 11 trees. Before it's all over, there will be 11 trees in our house.
Holy cow!
I know, Mason. It's nuts. But I mean, I'll tell you, it's like I don't know. I think there may be little elves helping Cabana Wife because she goes out to work on a tree and I'm diverted for about 10 minutes. I come back and the tree is like, wow,
just popping out of nowhere.
Where did that happen? How fast can you decorate a tree?
Yeah,
which is good because I don't get involved in it. I don't get involved in that. But, so we're in the process of doing all that. Not only that, but we're if I seem a little like one bubble off center today, we're still doing the 2-hour feedings of our new puppy Solo, and that means that somebody has to get up at 1 and somebody has to get up at 4, or 2 and 4. Depending on how it all falls.
You're a trooper,
and I've been doing the some of those late night feedings, and so one of those things, Thank goodness for the 5-hour energy drinks. I don't know what to do. We got Mason Fleming in today for Chris Webber. No doubt he's off mourning of the Bulldogs' loss to Alabama over the weekend. Yeah, he's going to be very saddened by that. I haven't had the guts to reach out to him and offer my condolences, but he will be very upset.
Yeah, give him a couple of days off of mourning.
Then Mac Morey is out today, and we're very pleased to have Joan Jones on, who's a very respected broadcaster. I was saying earlier to Joan that we competed against each other because I used to work at WMAL, she used to work at WTOP in Washington. We both found our way out of Washington to Tennessee, and we both are loving it. And so she will be with us on occasion, and we are tickled to have Joan coming by now and then. So, Joan, welcome to the WTN family.
Is it a thing in Tennessee that you need 11 Christmas trees?
Well, it is at my house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have some catching up to do.
Yeah, listen. In the years past, sometimes didn't even put up a tree. But I married a woman who is all about Christmas, and it's spectacular.
I like
really,
her
honestly.
already.
Yeah, it's really quite a thing.
Yeah, I was like, you definitely got me beat for sure.
Yeah, listen, 11 trees. Some people would call it a little obsessive. I would not go that far because I have to live with this woman, and so we'll just leave it there. I have some stories here that I think you'll be interested in that fall into the category of the wokeness thing that are happening so many places around the country, and how these policies, these woke policies, seem to really turn out to not look too good, or there will be a development as a result of woke policies that just makes you mad. Let me start out one of those stories that just makes you mad. 2 Black Lives Matter rioters who pleaded guilty to torching a Wendy's fast food restaurant in Atlanta in 2020 have been sentenced. Well, what would you think? I mean, that's a pretty serious thing, arson. They pleaded guilty to arson, so certainly they're going to do some time in the Gray Bar Hotel. You would think they're going to do some time behind bars. Nope. It turns out that in Atlanta, you can burn down a fast food restaurant and get 5 years of probation and a $500 fine.
Man.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you just shake your head and you go, wow. Now, I think, this is what happens and is part of these the sort of progressive policies that are finding their way into so many district attorney's offices around the country. When it comes time to bring charges, they choose not to bring charges. They cut a plea deal and everybody walks. I mean, honestly, burning down a restaurant and you get a 5-year probation and $500 fine. Chisholm Kingston and Natalie White were charged with conspiracy to commit arson in the first degree and 2 counts of first-degree arson. Both pleaded guilty in the plea deal, according to court records. There is some hardship involved here. They must complete 150 hours of community service.
Oh, no.
Oh, the burden of all that. In addition to charges, John Wesley Wade, 35, was indicted for the same fire in January of this year, and he got 5 years in the federal prison on federal arson charges. This stems from the BLM riots, which took place over the death of Rayshard Brooks, who was killed in a police-involved shooting in June of 2020. Brooks allegedly punched Officer David Brosnan and sold his taser. And while under investigation for a DUI in the parking lot of that very Wendy's restaurant, Brooks reportedly aimed the taser at Officer Brosnan. However, a second officer, Garrett Rolfe, shot and killed Brooks during the altercation. Brooks allegedly punched Brosnan, causing a concussion. In response to the incident, BLM rioters burned down the Wendy's in protest of Brooks' death. Later, violent demonstrations exploded over the city in the months following. Former Fulton County District Attorney charged officers Rolfe and Brosnan. Brosnan was charged with aggravated assault, while Rolfe faces felony murder and assault charges. Unbelievable. 99% of charges brought against BLM rioters in the 2020 dropped by local prosecutors, according to an analysis from The Guardian. This news comes just a month after New York City officials agreed to pay $13 million to violent 2020 Summer of Love BLM and Antifa protesters after they caused damage to 45 businesses. I don't understand how this happens. I don't understand how you can carry out a crime of this nature, felony crime, and you get, 150 hours of community service and a 5-year probation and a $500 fine, and that's it? Really, something's out of balance, and we really, you wonder why crime runs rampant. It's because people commit violent crimes or serious crimes, and there's no penalty. No penalty whatsoever. Cut a plea deal. We don't want to take this to court. We don't want to try this thing. But that's the place we find ourselves. Let's take you to Oregon for a minute. Oregon residents voted in 2020 to decriminalize drugs. But just 3 years later, many businesses, citizens, and lawmakers are having second thoughts amid a spike in overdose deaths and drug use, according to the Daily Caller. More than 60% of Oregon voters think that the Measure 110, as it was called, which decriminalized the possession of small amounts of drug in November 2020, has made drug addiction, homelessness, and crime worse, according to research, and 56% of Oregon voters believe that the measure should be repealed entirely, according to an Emerson College poll. Well, what did they think was going to happen? You decriminalize the possession of small amounts of drug, then there is no reason why you wouldn't then, if you were so inclined to do so, carry small amounts of drug if there's no real penalty for it. The coalition of cities, police groups, and prosecutors called on the state to recriminalize drug possession, and businesses who spoke to the Daily Caller say they're struggling with the drug crisis in the state. It's spread across Oregon. It's not just a Portland problem. Oregon House Leader Jeff Helfrich, a former Portland police officer, told the Daily Caller, it's just out of control. I've never seen it this bad. Drug overdoses also surged, so not only do you have crime on the uptick and a problem with homeless people who are strung out on drugs, you have drug overdoses that claim lives. Drug overdoses surged in Oregon between 2020 and 2022. And it ran about 3% of Portland residents out of the city during that same time frame. 600 people died of overdoses in 2019 in Oregon, and that number doubled in 2022. 600 went to 1,200 people who died of overdoses. The Republicans have a solution, but there hasn't been any talk about it because it doesn't seem like they have the will or the votes on the Democrat side of the politics there. Democrats control the state of Oregon in a very big way. House Republicans in Oregon called on the legislature to address the crisis in multiple letters and have called for recriminalization of possession of drugs. I haven't heard people from leadership on the other side of the aisle say, yes, you have to work together to fix this. Well, it doesn't sound like they're inclined to do it even now. But the people of Oregon are upset, and they are angry, and they are speaking up. Whether or not Democrat leadership would be willing to do this and go back and say, well, it looks like we made a mistake, right? maybe we should go back and recriminalize these drugs. They don't seem to be inclined to do that, although that seemingly would solve much of the problem. Bureaucrats in Washington state are banning gas furnaces in new homes and businesses. They are banning gas furnaces in a roundabout way that allows the politician to claim nobody is banning anything, but you can count on media allies and fact checkers to scold you if you point out their ban is a ban. Gas stoves and furnaces are enduring the same exact fate that incandescent bulbs did and the gasoline-powered cars will over time. The storyline is becoming familiar to anyone who makes something deemed an enemy to the planet. According to the Washington Examiner, the government subsidizes your competition as cutting-edge green technology while ignoring the environmental downside of new tech. Then politicians will float an outright ban, and finally bureaucrats will instead impose regulations that are crafted explicitly to ban your products through new mandatory standards. Yeah, we don't have a ban in place. We just have new standards, and none of the old existing furnaces, none of the any gas furnace on the market doesn't meet our standards. But we didn't ban anything. We just changed the standards. And it's not our fault that nothing out there meets those standards. Washington has a state building code council, an unelected body that basically has legislative power. Wow. And so they're saying gas furnaces are on the way out. Listen, this is the way the left likes to accomplish things. It's called incrementalism. They start out saying things like, I'll give you an example, the PETA people. We don't believe that people should wear furs. And they protest about furs. And then a lot of people decide, well, maybe I don't want to wear a fur. Then they say, you know what? We believe the same thing is true about leather. We don't think you should wear leather. You can't have shoe leather. You can't have a leather jacket. You can't have a leather belt. We don't think you should wear leather. And a lot of people go, okay, well, maybe I won't wear leather. Then the next thing is, hey, no meat. You can't have any meat. So once you start buying into it, it's the slippery slope. And it's called incrementalism. They don't try to take all one big bite out of the apple. They try to take several little bites out of the apple. And before you know it, things have changed dramatically. Subtly, slowly, but over the course of a number of years, they have accomplished exactly what they wanted to accomplish. In this particular case, it's about fossil fuel, and the incrementalism is now underway. Gas stoves, gas furnaces, anything that has to do with gas, including, we're talking about gasoline as well, doing everything they can to do away with the internal combustion engine and force us into electric cars that, according to car dealers, nobody wants to buy right now. If you want to buy an electric car, a hell of a time to do it. There's a lot of them on the lot, and not many people are buying them. I want to open this last story up and say I'd like to turn on the phone lines and see what you think about this. It's another one of these sort of woke stories, and I got to tell you, eyebrows were raised over the weekend watching a little football, and on comes a Bud Light commercial. And it features no one other than Peyton Manning. Now, in the state of Tennessee, Peyton Manning, he's pretty high up there. A lot of esteem for Peyton Manning in the state of Tennessee. But now he and Emmitt Smith have decided to take their reputations, put them on the line as endorsers of Anheuser-Busch Bud Light. The ad announced by Anheuser-Busch on Thursday and seen over the weekend features Manning and Smith at a bar. Manning decides to buy beers for everyone at the packed bar and distributes them by passing them to fellow drinkers. When it comes time to hurl the last Bud Light, Manning takes aim at one customer who makes a spectacular one-handed grab, and that turns out to be Emmitt Smith, signaling a touchdown. That's the spot. Now, we love our Peyton Manning here in Tennessee, but, a lot of you have been very strong when we talk about this before, are not in love with Bud Light. Are you irritated with Peyton Manning for making this decision, or is it time for the Bud Light thing to come to a close and let's go start drinking Bud Light again after, their big... They lost, I think, billions, actually, in revenue as a result of that ad with Dylan Mulvaney. Very controversial, and I've heard you talk about it, and you're irritated about it. Many of you said you will never drink Bud Light again. Well, if Peyton's drinking Bud Light again, will you reconsider? 615-737-9986. I want you to get on the line. Is it time? Kid Rock also said sort of the same thing. Maybe it's time to let the Bud Light thing go away and return to drinking Bud Light again. Where are you on this? Are you angry? Are you upset? Or are you reconsidering? 615-737-9986. Your calls after the break, 21 minutes now, past the hour, 4 o'clock. Big news from the folks at DT McCall. If you've been thinking about buying a gun safe, but putting it off, don't wait any longer. This is the time. Gun safes are sales tax free. That's right, sales tax free. Now, it's hunting season, so be sure you're keeping your gun safe when you're not in the tree stand with a gun safe from DT McCall's. DT McCall's is the largest Liberty Safe dealer in Tennessee. Why? Free delivery and setup. Others charge $500 at least for delivery and setup of the big models and $300 for the smaller ones. DT McCall & Sons delivers every safe free every time, period. Never a setup charge. And you know, security is so important these days, and gun safes can be used for other things. Valuables, cash, jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, whatever you need to keep safe from theft or fire. So save some big bucks now on your gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Just go to dtmccalls.com for locations and more information.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee, right at home in the woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
Up ahead on WTN, what does the Biden administration have to say about civilian deaths in Gaza as the war rages on? And Nashville proved pretty dangerous to pedestrians over the weekend. Those stories coming up at 4:30 on Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes now past the hour, so if you saw it over the weekend, Bud Light has a new commercial featuring Peyton Manning. You know, we all love our Peyton Manning here in Tennessee. And Emmitt Smith. Well, if you're a Cowboy fan, I suppose you like Emmitt Smith. But two guys with great reputations who put their reputations on the line to support Bud Light, which, as you know, has gone through a rough patch because of the Dylan Mulvaney sort of controversy, I guess you'd call it. They lost about 30% of their sales, which is millions and millions, if not $1 billion worldwide in revenue. So, are you okay with this? I mean, are you ready to reconsider? Has Peyton, your old buddy Peyton, has he changed your mind? Let's go to Kenyon in Gallatin. Kenyon, you're on with Brian on the drive. So tell me, did you see the spot? And number one, how do you feel? And number two, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I saw it. I got to be honest. I love Peyton Manning. My wife and I followed him for years and years. Love to see him play football, but I'm not a Bud Light fan anyways. I'm a Miller Lite. I like Miller Lite better. But I would feel if someone gave me a Bud Light and I'm standing there holding it, I would just feel weird holding it. Like they're looking at me like, are you supporting, whatever? It makes me feel like, I'm gay or something. Yeah, I wouldn't hold a Bud Light can. I don't like the beer anyways, but I prefer Miller Lite. But
you love your Peyton Manning, right? So does it make you want to reconsider, or is it, or you still feel the same way about the whole thing?
No, I'm not going to change my mind.
All right, let me move on and get.
Frankly, most people aren't going to change their mind either. The people that I know, that Bud Light is dead.
Yeah, I think they've taken a big hit. Charles in Shelby County, in Shelbyville. You're up with. I'm sorry, you're not in Shelby County. You're in Shelbyville. What's up, Charles? What do you think about all this? Charles, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. I'm in Estill Springs. I don't think you forgive them. Number one, there's been no public acknowledgement about what they did or asking for forgiveness. They haven't terminated the marketing director. It's manipulation.
Actually, on that point, Charles, I think they did get rid of the marketing director. He has stepped away or he's resigned. I don't know how these things go. Was he fired or did he just decide to leave on his own? Hard to know, but that person is no longer there.
Well, that makes somewhat of a difference. But to me, the commercials that they've come out with since this Dylan Mulvaney thing broke, the first set that came out were about the hard workers at Budweiser. Mm-hmm. So take pity on them. Don't punish them. The second is we're going to go after these classical athletes and appeal to the people that support them. I think it's manipulation. But if you look behind the scenes, I guarantee you they're still going to support pride festivals all over the country, and they're still going to support all the things that they were supporting that led them to the Mulvaney decision.
All right. Let me move on, Charles. I got to get some other folks in here. Robin in Lebanon, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Robin? Robin?
Who does that be?
That's you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I love Peyton Manning. I'm a Tennessean, and I watched him play football in college. Great guy. I feel like him doing this with Bud Light is actually selling himself. Well, they must have offered him so much money, he just couldn't say no.
Yeah. I'm wondering how much they got paid for this. That's a great question, Robin. That's the same thing that crossed my mind. I want to squeeze one more in. Let's go to Brian in Nashville. Brian, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Brian?
Hey, I'm here.
Go ahead.
So before the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, Bud Light was actually my domestic beer of choice. So that was definitely a problem. And I was always thinking, why should, from my point of view, why should I be affected where if Bud Light's my domestic beer of choice, why should I have to go and change what I'm doing and what I like to do because of some bureaucracy, going on behind the scenes? But I understand everything. But it's absolutely time to let it go. If you're a Bud Light drinker or would like to be, and you're still holding out because of something as simple as supporting transgender in a marketing decision at one time, then that's on you. I don't know.
All right, Brian.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian. Greatly appreciate it. Well, I want to know, the one question I have remaining on this is how much did Peyton Manning get paid for this? To put his reputation on the line? That's a great question. I'd really like to know the answer to. I don't think we'll ever get that answer. 31 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock, time for the news.
.31 now, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. 53 degrees now under cloudy skies. Your forecast and traffic are just ahead. Make that. We begin with an update on the Israel-Hamas war. Reports out of Tel Aviv say the fighting there has reached its fiercest level yet, including fighting at close quarters. Wall Street Journal reports the Israeli military has cornered Hamas fighters in 2 of their last strongholds in the northern Gaza Strip. Meantime, one senior Biden administration official says Hamas shoulders the blame for the high count of civilian deaths.
I have not seen evidence that they are intentionally killing civilians. We believe that far too many civilians have been killed. But again, this goes back to the underlying problem of this entire situation.
And he says the problem is that civilians are being used as human shields. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller there. A man who was struck by a car while trying to cross Nolensville Pike near Thomason Lane last night has now died of his injuries. He became the 3rd pedestrian fatality over the weekend in Nashville. A sea of red across the board on Wall Street today.
Stocks slipped to start the week. The Dow fell 41 points, but it had been down more than 200 earlier in the session. The Nasdaq gave up 120. The S&P closed down 25. Investors are a little jittery ahead of some key reports this week on the job market. They could provide more insight into what the Federal Reserve is thinking it's going to do about interest rates as it tries to bring inflation under control. Another major airline merger. Alaska Air Group has agreed to buy Hawaiian Airlines in a $1.9 billion deal that includes more than $900 million in Hawaiian's debt. The acquisition still needs the blessing of federal regulators who have been wary of more consolidation within the airline industry over fears that it could lead to higher airfares. Spotify plans to cut 17% of its global workforce. It's the music streaming service's 3rd round of layoffs this year.
That's ABC's Daria Albinger. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Let me tell you, if I could, about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Time to leave the pain in 2023 and get on the right path. Pain-free for 2024. That ought to be your goal, and you can get help at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. The 2023 special is in its final month, so take advantage of that, where you can get your examination for just $23 and your first treatment. Did you know that Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley have had a tremendous success in providing correct or missing findings from an MRS report, the stuff that other folks missed? They can provide you with the truth and then recommend a thoughtful, customized treatment plan. Have you had your MRI report explained to you in detail? Well, if you're a new patient, bring in your MRI report for analysis or let Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley do their own x-rays. Then you'll get your first treatment for $23 with the state-of-the-art therapy and equipment. You're more than a number at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, and they care about helping you get pain-free. Starts with a phone call, 615-246-5009. Again, 615-246-5009. Listen, the 2023 special ends in 2023. Take advantage of it now. Learn more by going to their website, painisbad.com.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee, right at home in the woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
.39 past the hour of 4 o'clock, hour number 2 of the drive on this fourth day of December. Beautiful day here in bucolic Watertown, 49 degrees, a little warmer there in Nashville. And, this time of year, you can't really complain about that. We have more news from the investigation into Hunter Biden and his business deal. You know, when we say we're investigating Hunter Biden, really we're not investigating Hunter Biden. You know, Hunter Biden is a potential witness in an investigation of Joe Biden. And the the question that is ultimately at stake here, whatever happens to Hunter Biden is sort of inconsequential to the bigger question. And that is, did Joe Biden, either when he was vice president or as president of the United States or even in the time in between, did he receive benefit? Did he take any official actions and cash in the good family name to help some of these ne'er-do-well business partners that Hunter Biden, in other words, was it a pay-for-play kind of thing? If you need something done from the Obama administration, if you pay money to Hunter Biden and you get the old man to take action on your behalf, boy, that's an impeachable offense right there. And so they've been talking. We had one the other day where there's a $200,000 check and a $40,000 check that went from the account of James Biden, Joe Biden's brother, into Joe Biden's personal account. And it says repayment for a loan. Everything is a repayment for a loan, apparently. Where's the evidence of the loan, is the question. Well, now there's a new development. I'm going to read from the New York Post, which is always on the cutting edge of this story. President Biden received a recurring payment of $1,380 from his son Hunter and his law firm beginning in 2018 shortly after a bank money laundering officer warned that the same account was receiving millions of dollars in Chinese-linked funds without any services being rendered. A bank order shows that Owasco PC set up a monthly transfer to then former Vice President Joe Biden with a voided check for the future president included in the documentation, which was released today. A source told the Post that at least 3 recurring payments were made on September 17th, October 15th, and November 15th, totaling $4,140 to the elder Biden from Owasco PC. Now, President Biden's family must be held accountable for this blatant corruption, says Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer in a video release. Today, the House Oversight Committee is releasing subpoenaed bank records that show Hunter Biden's business entity, Owasco PC, made direct monthly payments to Joe Biden. This wasn't a payment from Hunter Biden's personal account, but an account for his corporation that received payments from China and other shady corners of the world. At this moment, Hunter Biden is under investigation by the Department of Justice for using Owasco PC for tax evasion and other serious crimes. And based on whistleblower testimony, we now know the Justice Department made a concerted effort to prevent investigators from asking questions about Joe Biden. I wonder why, asked James Comer. The White House did not immediately have any comment. In fact, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about it at the briefing today, and she pleaded as if she had no knowledge of this whatsoever.
According to bank records obtained by the House Oversight Committee, though, one of Hunter Biden's businesses, Osawa PC, set up direct payments to the president. Did the president accept payment? And why would there be such an arrangement if they were never in business together, or if there was a wall of separation, as the president has previously said?
So I have to be clear with you. I have not seen that report, so I would have to refer you to my colleagues over at the White House counsel's office on that particular question. All right, everyone. See some of you in Boston or on Wednesday.
Yeah, and with that, she got out of the room quick. That was the last question of the day, and when she realized that might be something she had to talk about, she scooted right out of the room. And by the way, by dismissing it and saying, I didn't know anything about it, she doesn't have to potentially answer any questions about it until next Wednesday. That's like day after tomorrow. By then, the story will have passed, and that's what she's counting on. I don't know how she could say she didn't know anything about it. I've got a story here in the New York Post. I got a story here in the Washington Times. I got a story here from the Washington Examiner. I mean, the story was out there. Certainly visible enough that she should have known about it. I mean, one of two things is happening. Either she didn't want to talk about it and she's playing dumb and saying, I didn't know, I didn't think about it, I can't talk about something I don't know about. Normally, when you have a question like that, you're in the White House briefing room, and I've been there. You ask the question. If they say, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you on that. She didn't even offer to do that. She wanted out of that room as soon as the name Hunter Biden came up. The White House did not immediately comment, but it's possible, according to the New York Post, the funds were meant to repay Joe Biden for car payments made by his son. Now, I'm going to tell you more about that in a moment. Earlier that year, in January of 2019, an email from Assistant Katie Dodge to Hunter Biden annotated various expenses, including Ford Raptor reimbursement to JRB, $1,380. The provenance of the funds is unclear, however, and additional records show that Hunter Biden was knee-deep in two of his most controversial business relationships at the time, with Ukraine's Burisma Holdings and CEFC China Energy. The evidence emerged as House Republicans prepared to question first brother James Biden on Wednesday of this week and potentially Hunter Biden next week. See, this thing is moving right along. This thing is not over. And if you get James Biden behind closed doors and Hunter Biden, he says he wants to do it in public, but if he gets the opportunity to do it in public, Comer has said it will be after he has a closed-door session and a sworn deposition. It's all supposed to be focused on the president's role in his family dealings in countries such as China and Ukraine, with a possible floor vote to authorize the ongoing impeachment inquiry coming this month. Things are starting to pick up. You know, I tell you all the time that there's something about this story. It has sort of a drip, drip, drip quality to it. And that's true because they're little incremental things that happen every day. But when you stand back and see over the course of time what the House Oversight Committee has come up with, it raises a lot of questions. I have a feeling, knowing how these kinds of investigations work, that James Comer and Jim Jordan in the Judiciary Committee have a lot more information than they have publicly acknowledged. And that's why they want to get behind closed doors with Hunter Biden and James Biden. They want to ask them not the 30 questions you would get in an open hearing with the Democrats running interference on the other side, but about 150 questions to sort of talk, well, what is this transaction and where did this come from? And tell me a little bit about this. And, trace for me where this money went and how it ended up in the bank account of your dad. Those are the kinds of questions you need to get in specific detail. You're not going to get that in a public hearing, and that's why Comer, Jim Jordan, and the others are insisting upon a closed-door session with Hunter Biden, which is supposed to take place sometimes this month, but boy, sometimes next week, and James Biden is scheduled for day after tomorrow. So things are happening behind the scenes, and when you talk about authorizing the impeachment inquiry, that means basically they go to the floor and they say, here's what we know. We want to officially see, they're doing it without having a vote taken on the floor, which sort of, you need to have a little more credibility about the process. And by having an official vote on the floor, you gain some of that. Of course, what is still true in all of this is that while he was a presidential candidate, Joe Biden denied that he ever discussed business with his relatives. But evidence has shown since that he met with his relatives' associates from both Burisma and CEFC on occasion. Documents from the First Son's abandoned laptop show that Burisma board advisor sought bank reference information on September 14th, one day before the initial transfer to Joe Biden was sought. However, the transaction was not executed for another 2 days, apparently due to a later-than-expected form submission. And Joe Biden met this guy at an April 17th dinner party in D.C.'s Cafe Milano. I've been to Cafe Milano. I couldn't afford to eat there very many times, but it's a pretty nice place, and it's where the movers and shakers go in Washington, D.C. Hunter was also on the tail end of disbursing millions of dollars received from CEFC China Energy, one of two major Biden family dealings with Chinese government links. Now let's get back to this $1,380 payment. Let me talk to you about that just a little bit. It says there are notations in some of the paperwork that suggest this was repayment for a loan, and then it says Ford Raptor. What is a Ford Raptor? Well, I had to look it up. I thought I knew, but I didn't know for sure. Ford Raptor was a dressed-out version of the big Ford Bronco, not the small one, but the big one. And you're not going to believe this, but the cost of that particular car, that Bronco, dressed out in what they call the Ford Raptor package, enhanced engine, graphics package, a whole bunch of upgrades, $100,000. $100,000 for a Bronco. I don't know about you, Mason Fleming, but $100,000 for a Ford Bronco seems a little much.
Yeah, those are some high top cars for a lot, but I don't think it's worth $100,000. I think.
Well,
yeah.
If you looked at what they were sold for, is about $100,000. Now,
interesting.
Let us assume for a moment that he got a 7-year loan, 0% financing. Back in the day when this was done, Ford often offered 0% financing with people whose finances looked like they were in pretty good shape. And, there's no doubt Hunter Biden had a lot of money in the bank. So his numbers probably look pretty good. He probably got offered a 0%. I got offered a 0% financing on my truck before this all interest rates started to go up. So it's, there's something Ford was doing. 7-year loan, as, some of these cars, I would never take out a 7-year loan, quite frankly, but a lot of people do. And for an expensive car, 7-year loan, the payments come to $1,380 a month. Now, there were taxes that had to be paid on that and all kinds of other things. So I don't know, and usually those are just rolled into the loan. But the numbers come out right that there may have been a car. But the question is the money, the provenance of the money. Where did it come from? And where is the evidence that Joe Biden purchased this car for Hunter Biden and then needed to be repaid? Well, anyway, this is the big story. Watch very closely. This story is going to get good this week as James Biden appears behind closed doors on Wednesday, and potentially Hunter Biden sometime next week. 51 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock. United Structural Systems, a foundation repair and waterproofing company that's been in Middle Tennessee since 1994. More than 25,000 satisfied residential customers. I mean, there are people who have done business with them who have really had great experiences. Listen to this one from Nashville. A guy named Joshua wrote, "Recently had our foundation repaired by the team at USS. It was an exceptional experience. They finished ahead of schedule, kept us informed every step of the way, and restored everything perfectly, even after digging deep into our lawn and tearing out concrete. Their professionalism and courtesy stood out, working seamlessly around other vendors at our house, and explained all the changes up front. Communication was top-notch and friendly, making the process smooth. And what impressed us most was the cleanliness. They contained the mess and left the site spotless. We've got multiple quotes, and USS's was not only competitive but honest, without the unnecessary add-ons we saw suggested by others. I highly recommend USS." Joshua from Nashville. I've got all kinds of people who've had similar experiences that I could tell you about, and I have over the recent days and weeks. So listen, if you need foundation work, if you need waterproofing work, if you are worried about it, just call the people I would call. Call the folks at USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com, or call this number, 615-488-7855.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Up ahead on WTN, confirmation of what's caused the ceasefire in Gaza to fall apart and why a Spring Hill construction site is off limits to everyone right now. Those stories and more coming up at 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, Joan Jones, thank you so much for filling in today for Mac Morey, who's no doubt he's in mourning after Kansas City lost. And then Chris Webber is off, too, after his Bulldogs lost this weekend to Alabama. Both men apparently, they couldn't get over it and couldn't show up for work today of some kind. And congratulations to 78-year-old Brenda Lee, who has the number one song on the Billboard Hot 100 chart 60 some odd years after it was first released. The song, Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. Can you believe that? I mean, it's at the top of the charts, and the last time she had something back on the charts was, at the top of the charts was I'm Sorry. I think that was in 1960.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Brenda Lee getting it done, ladies and gentlemen. 58 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you, if I could, about the folks over at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Listen, we're about to end our 2023, and if you want to get on the right path and be pain-free for 2024, why not call the Wellness Institute of Nashville and take advantage of their 2023 special? It'll only last a few more weeks. 615-246-5009. It's in its final month, and this is your chance to get rid of the pain for only $23. Have you been diagnosed and getting treatment but still have chronic pain? Did you know that Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley have a tremendous success in providing correct or missing findings from an MRI report? They can tell you the things the other people missed and then recommend a thoughtful, customized treatment plan. Have you had your MRI report explained in detail? If you're a new patient, bring in your MRI report for analysis so that Dr. Mitchell or Dr. Ashley do their own x-rays. Then get your first treatment for $23 with state-of-the-art therapy and equipment. You are more than a number at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, and they care about get you pain-free for 2023 or 2024. Let's get started now. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Straight up 5 o'clock, I'm Joan Jones with your top stories, the latest traffic report and the weather forecast on the way in 5 minutes. The White House says that the U.S. is almost out of funding to help Ukraine defend against Russia's invasion.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan saying every day Congress delays on Ukrainian aid is a good day for Vladimir Putin.
Will hurt Ukraine and help Russia. It will hurt democracy and help dictators.
The White House insisting the U.S. will run out of funding by the end of the year if Congress does not approve more Ukrainian military aid. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
The White House has revealed that Israel resumed its military campaign against Hamas Friday because Hamas refuses to release more female hostages. The U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Hamas's insistence on detaining women meant that a pathway to a new truce is getting harder to see. A former American diplomat is facing charges of being a spy for Cuba.
Weeping while handcuffed in court, 73-year-old Manuel Roca ordered held without bond until his next hearing Wednesday. The former American diplomat, who once served as U.S. ambassador to Bolivia, is charged with serving as a secret intelligence agent for Cuba since at least 1981. The Justice Department accusing Roca in court documents of meeting with Cuban intelligence operatives, giving false information about his travels and contacts, openly praising the late Cuban leader Fidel Castro, and referring to the U.S. as the enemy. The FBI learned about Roca's Cuban ties last year and arranged a series of undercover meetings in Miami, finally arresting him at his home on Friday. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
A scary scene in Spring Hill today when a gas line ruptured, sending a plume of fire into the air. It happened at a construction site. Amazingly, no one was injured. The gas has since been shut off and the scene was marked safe late this afternoon. Republican Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa is demanding that the White House fix a problem that's popped up in Massachusetts. Families who booked hotel rooms in Foxborough for the upcoming Army-Navy game have begun receiving cancellation notices. Fox News reports their reservations were canceled so the hotels can be used to house illegal immigrants who were transported there. Massachusetts has what's called a right to shelter law. It says that migrants and homeless families must have somewhere to live. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening. I mean, really, honestly, you know what? It's I cannot get used to this idea of it being dark so early. I just stepped outside to get a cup of water and to stretch my legs for a moment, and it's just like pitch black out there. I mean, I look at it. I read a story. This is the week where it gets darkest the earliest in the entire year. I don't quite understand how this works, because it seemed like to me that would be up against, the winter solstice, but apparently no. It gets early. It's like it starts, the sun goes down at like 4:30 this time of year, which is nuts. It just feels so weird. Doesn't it seem weird to you, Mason?
Oh my goodness, yeah, it just throws me off. I thought the other night, or over the weekend on Saturday, I looked at the clock thinking, oh man, it's probably midnight already, and hanging out with a couple buddies was like, cool, they'll be heading home soon. It was 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. And the days don't actually start getting longer until we get to the first day of winter. And then from that day forward, the days get longer all the way till the first day of summer. Then they start getting shorter again. And that's a weird thing, though. But apparently, I was reading, meteorologists, they follow stuff like this, and they were saying this is the earliest that it gets dark in the entire year.
Wow.
We're in it right now. Yeah. So I don't know why, but that's the way it is. I am blown away by this story regarding Brenda Lee.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, do you have that? Did you able to?
Yeah, I got it up here for you.
Yeah, remember this song from 1958, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, it is. It still sounds good. I mean, all these years later, it still sounds so good. Well, I mean, if you missed it a moment ago, the story is that this song it has reached the Billboard Top 100 charts, and it's been like the last time she had something at the top of the charts, it was in 1960. It was a song called "I'm Sorry." And this breaks a lot of records, many of which were held by Mariah Carey in that song, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Blah. Butch Lee beat out on the top spot this week. I mean, it's Christmas music, and that's what people are downloading. That's what people are listening to. But I got to tell you, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree is only the third holiday #1 ever on the Hot 100.
Wow.
I mean, and she's 78 years old, and this was recorded in 1958.
Breaking numbers.
And I'll tell you the way they used to record these songs in 1958. They came into a studio. I don't even know. I think this may have been recorded in Nashville, if memory serves me correct. But one way or the other, they came into a studio and they would cut a song in an hour, and they would crank it out.
Wow.
And some of these songs that you've heard, like Bill Haley's, classic, and all these great songs, were recorded like in 1 or 2 takes.
Oh yeah, and it's not like they're recording instruments at one point and then singer at one point. No. It's all
Everybody
together.
played it as if live, is what we used to say, as if live. And anyway, it says the achievement breaks several records, many of which were held by Mariah Carey's almost 3-decade-old. Oh, we got to listen to the finish. All I Want for Christmas Is You beat Lee out for the top spot in years past. I cannot believe that Rocking has hit #1 65 years after its release. Thank you to the team that worked so hard to celebrate this song's anniversary this year. A new EP, A Rocking Christmas with Brenda Lee, featuring Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, plus Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Jingle Bell Rock. That's the one I was thinking about. I know that was cut
at
like
great
5
too.
in the morning. 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
one take, and they rewrote the song just before they did the take. I did a story about this a couple years back. Yeah. Lee recorded multiple Christmas songs penned by songwriter Johnny Marks on the same day in 1956. Here it is. Record producer, iconic Nashville creator Owen Bradley offered advice about the finished song's potential. If this song hits it big, it will only be hit for a few months, Owen Bradley said. Yeah, I think he missed that one. Owen Bradley had a way of seeing around corners, but he apparently missed this one. Lee
I'm
will
kind of
appear.
glad he did.
Yeah, listen to this. Lee will appear on December 7th NBC television special Christmas at the Opera to perform at the age of, 78 years old. She will perform Rocking Around the Christmas Tree.
Wow.
The program airs at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock p.m. Middle Tennessee time, and streams the next day on Peacock. Wow, I mean, congratulations to Brenda Lee.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's an accomplishment. And
Yeah,
that
that's
many
impressive.
years after, I'm saying that's great. You may just throw another big music story while I'm here.
Yeah, go for it.
Garth Brooks has invited the other day Scotty McCreery to become the newest member of the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, wow.
This happened over the weekend, I think it was, during their Christmas shows. When I got started doing this, people asked, what are your goals, McCreery said. I said, one day I'd like to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. McCreery earned his fame with the deep vocals. You know, of course, he has that very wonderful, deep, rich baritone voice, and won the 10th season of American Idol with it. The North Carolina native was the first country artist and the youngest male artist to debut his first studio album at number 1 on the all-genre Billboard Top 200 Albums chart. He has since had at least 4 albums that have debuted at number 1, and earlier this year he's one of 6 people inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame, and now he is the newest member of the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, if you're in country music, and you know, you're sitting on the stage and you've just done your song, and you look over and here comes Garth Brooks out onto the stage. First of all, Garth Brooks, and he walks out on the stage and said, hey, we've been thinking, Scotty, would you like to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry? And you know what? What's the answer? Of course I would.
Yeah, if anybody in country turns that down, you've made the wrong mistake for sure.
Yeah.
Man, what an honor. That's great.
Yeah, Opry doesn't simply pass out invitation to the biggest stars with the most hit. They look for a musical and generational balance. Opry membership requires a passion for country music's fans, a connection to the music's history, and it requires commitment, even a willingness to make significant sacrifices to uphold that commitment. I've heard this from other people I know in the music industry, that it is a commitment. I mean, when you become a member of the Grand Ole Opry, you agree to do so many shows a year, and that means, you know, if you have to readjust your travel schedule, you know, you readjust your travel schedule. When the Opry calls, the expectation is, if at all possible, you say yes. And still, I love going to the Grand Ole Opry. It's one of my favorite things. Highlight of my career, one of the great highlights of my career was being asked to be a guest announcer on the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, that's cool.
And it happened, and they asked me, this is back when I was working for Fox News, and they asked me if I would come. Would you like to come out and be a guest announcer? I said, how much do I have to pay you for that? And they said, no, it's free. You know, in fact, we'll pay you a little something. Not kidding. I would pay you for the opportunity.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And you know, they take the show from the Opry House down to the Ryman during the holidays.
Yeah.
And I asked, can I do it when you're down at the Ryman? Because to do it at the Ryman would be, you know, really something special. And so I remember, showing up, and they escorted me backstage, and that's the first time I've seen the show backstage several times, but the first time I saw the show backstage. And then I had a little thing that I got to introduce my friend, Ricky Skaggs and Kentucky Thunder. And I forget how many it is. I said something like, here they are, 15-time Grammy winner, Ricky Skaggs and Kentucky Thunder. And Ricky came out and said, it's 16. And I said, somebody needs to update his website. That's what I said.
Correction there.
And then, and then he said, Brian, we're very glad to have Brian out here today. Brian is a Texan. You can always tell a Texan. You just can't tell him much. Boom. And so then they launched into their songs. And it was like, I walked out of that place floating on a cloud. It's like, man, sometimes in this news business, there are long hours and there are difficult things that you got to go through. And you have to endure a lot. And sometimes there's early hours, and sometimes you find yourself, working on a holiday when you'd rather be with family. I mean, there are these things that happen with being in the news business, but you also from time to time get these remarkable experiences. And I'll never ever forget that night at the Ryman, where I got to go and be a guest announcer. And I have a poster, and it's like, I think it was like about 17 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's impressive, cool. Yeah. I love the Ryman. I've been, I think, 4 times now just to see different shows, and it's just a beautiful building, beautiful place, and I'm a little jealous of you right now, just a little bit.
I'll tell you that one of the really cool things that happened was backstage, because Ricky is a friend of mine, Ricky Skaggs. He by the way, he's going to be on the show before long. We're going to have him on, talk about his big Christmas show.
That'll be great.
So he was showing me around and introducing me to people. Like, this is the guy that's been playing, been the board operator. This guy's been playing piano for like 20 years. This guy over here, and this guy over here. Then he takes me backstage to where some of the artists are. And again, this is at the Ryman. And I got introduced to little Jimmy Dickens.
Wow.
When he was still alive. And he's little Jimmy Dickens for a reason. He was. He's not very tall. And so there's I have a great picture of him where I'm 6'4" and little Jimmy Dickens I bet he's probably about 4'10", 4'11".
Yeah, if that.
Little tiny guy, yeah. So that was a great moment. And then I think that night I saw, I'm trying to remember who all I saw that, but it was just a great show and what a great fun night. And anytime you go out to the Opry, it's always a great experience.
Absolutely. I work in hotels all the time. Every time people are here for a long time, I recommend it. Yeah. There's a show in town, go to it. Go to
the Opry, and you're never going to go wrong. I'm lucky to know several people who are members of the Grand Ole Opry, and so on occasion I've gotten to go and had the remarkable experience of getting to watch it from backstage, which is really cool. Honestly, you say, pinch yourself. Look at where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
The mother church of country music, ladies and gentlemen. Whew. What a good deal that is. Well, anyway, I was going to talk about some other things, but I got all carried away, and I'm so excited about Brenda Lee. That's a pretty cool thing. Let's see. Why don't we go and take a commercial break right now, and I come back, I'll talk a little bit about some news from Nashville that you may not have heard. It's coming up right after the break. It's now, we'll call it 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. If you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltz Co. are the two guys you need to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind, and that, my friends, is the Stoltz Co. difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is the key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and the techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. Now, they don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So listen, I suggest you go to their website, stoltzco.com. Let me spell that for you, STOLTZCO. StoltzCo.com. Look at some of the examples they have done for other people, and you'll quickly understand this isn't your grandpappy's pole barn. This is something new, something different, something upgraded. 615-622-5992. Give them a call after that. It's where quality and workmanship and great customer service is affordable. StoltzCo.com. Again, the number 615-622-5992.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing home in Tennessee. Right at home in the woods of Tennessee. Right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
Up ahead on WTN, Israeli fighters may have Hamas on the ropes in one part of Gaza. And a former United States diplomat has been arrested. We'll tell you why. Those stories coming up at 5:30. I'm Joan Jones on Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
Well, it's 23 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Supertalk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air, bringing you news and information. It seems like I've heard a lot of people that I know saying, I got this thing going on, whatever's going around right now. And it looks like it's a pretty serious respiratory flu is the best I can figure out. If you're hearing that right now, tracking by the Centers for Disease Control show a jump in the number of states experiencing elevated levels of respiratory illness. They put out a new map on last Friday, which includes data through the Thanksgiving holiday period. Now, here's the thing about Thanksgiving weekend. A lot of people traveling. A lot of people go on a trip, get on a plane, go to an airport. Maybe they go to a place where the respiratory illness is more prominent, more pronounced, and they bring it back. And so it probably will go up again in a significant way after they figure in the numbers post-Thanksgiving. But right now, they say Tennessee is one of 11 states that has high or very high respiratory illness. Now, what is high? It's all relative. It looks like in the week of November 5th to November 11th is the best of data we have right now. 3.6% of Tennesseans who went to a doctor or nurse for treatment had flu-like symptoms. And that's up considerably from the week before. Now, that 3.6 doesn't sound like a lot. But when you talk about, nearly 7 million people in the state of Tennessee, probably a little over 7 million people by now, then you're talking about 3% of that. And that's a fair number. CDC experts predict this year's respiratory virus season will look like last year. So, be aware it's out there. And what can you do? Take reasonable precautions. If somebody's sick, don't get around them. Wash your hands. Do the things that we all learned back in COVID. I'm not putting on a mask, but by the same token, if I hear somebody coughing and hacking and sputtering, I'm not gonna hang around them very long. And so that, be aware of that happening right now. Governor Lee has put forth an idea about vouchers for schools. And the idea here is he's going to make it available to a certain number of students in the first year, but then universal after that. And the question is, can this pass the state legislature? And I told you when this story came out that I'm 100% behind the governor on this, 1,000%. I love the idea of vouchers. I want to see these dollars made available to families so that they can get out of bad situations if they find themselves in one. If you're in a good situation with your kid where it's going to school, then you don't have to make any change. But a lot of people find themselves in schools that are failing and they have no other way out. I love this idea. I love the idea of thinking about the kids first and everybody else second. And I love this project and this idea. However, I also told you the slings and arrows and the stones are going to be thrown at this thing from every quarter because every school board is going to go, we're changing the way things have done. We're rattling the status quo. Oh, the wailing and the gnashing of the teeth that will take place. Well, It started, even among some Republicans. According to the Tennessean, GOP support not universal for Governor Bill Lee's statewide voucher plan. It concerns me. New details emerge of the school choice proposal. Funding would come from the general fund, and that plan does not include testing and other accountability measures. Lee's office has confirmed. I think we're still waiting for the final version. We don't have any legislation that's been laid forward. It's a little early for that. But I do love the idea of getting it out there. But, there are going to be people, even on the Republican side of the equation, who have a little heartburn with this thing because it's different. It's new. It's different. Well, we've never done it that way before. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do as a politician, you're trying to do something new and I think innovative, and that's the way I like to look at this thing. But you're trying to change people's minds because, well, listen, we've never done it that way before. I don't know about you, but I didn't have much tolerance. I don't have much tolerance in my own life when you're trying to do something, different. You try to lean forward on something, and then the answer you get from the status quo people is, well, gosh, I don't know. We've never tried that before. I'll tell you what is not acceptable is letting kids fail in school. And in Tennessee right now, there's a lot of schools that are not meeting the need of our students. And so I continue to support it, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to raise some concerns about this, and it'll be interesting to see whether he can get this through the state legislature. Even though Republicans control the House and the Senate, it still is a very interesting proposal that he's putting forward and different, and that means that a lot of people are going to be throwing rocks at it. We'll see how it all works out. By the way, Governor Lee will be on with Matt Murphy tomorrow, so you'll hear more about that, so be sure to tune in to Matt's show tomorrow. Do we see if I guess got a note from Matt. Let me see what I can find out here. I'll tell you. He'll be on at 12:35, right at the top, just after the top of Matt's show, Governor Lee, to talk about his educational scholarship plan. So you want to be sure you tune in for that tomorrow, 12:35 on the Matt Murphy Show. And real quick, I'll just throw this in for snicks and grins. If you were thinking about getting an apartment in downtown Nashville, apparently the prices of apartments are going down and everybody's offering special deals right now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they are, because apparently there's an influx of new units that are being added to the market, and 31,000 expected in the near future. That's a lot of apartments.
Yeah, that's a lot. Wow. I was looking a couple months ago just because I work so much down here, and everything was kind of wildly priced, but that's a good deal.
Well, they're saying, 10 weeks free, 8 weeks free in some places. I have some apartment communities, they're doing 3 months free.
Wow.
It brings the rent down significantly over time. Yeah. So I think the market is said to be a little soft for apartments in Nashville right now. It is 30 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
.5:30, I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. 52 and cloudy now. We've got some sunshine, though, headed our way. The full forecast and the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Reports out of Tel Aviv say the fighting there has reached its fiercest level yet, including fighting at close quarters. The Wall Street Journal reporting the Israeli military has cornered Hamas fighters in 2 of their last strongholds in the northern Gaza Strip. Meantime, the Biden administration confirms that Hamas's refusal to release more female hostages is what caused the ceasefire to fall apart last week. U.S. warships are still on high alert after missiles were fired at commercial ships in the Red Sea. The Navy responded to calls for help and shot the drones down that were carrying the missiles. The U.S. is pinning the blame on Iran.
The White House says it's consulting with allies on appropriate action to take in response to the latest Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran.
Pushed on whether the retaliatory efforts so far by the U.S. to these kinds of strikes have been effective, Sullivan defended the administration's response, but acknowledged there has been what he called, quote, very alarming behavior.
Yeah. That's ABC's Karen Travers. The Justice Department is saying that they have uncovered a Cuban mole who fooled the United States for decades. His name is Manuel Roca. He was a United States ambassador to Argentina and Bolivia. And he held other high-level positions in the State Department, too. He had access to critical information for decades. Well, he's retired now, but he was arrested last week at his Miami home for allegedly acting as a spy for Cuba.
To betray that trust by falsely pledging loyalty to the United States while serving a foreign power is a crime that will be met with the full force of the Justice Department.
That is Attorney General Merrick Garland. He says undercover FBI agents recorded the 73-year-old allegedly bragging about his allegiance to the communist country and detailing what he called his clandestine activity. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Nashville Gold and Coin. I'm going to talk about gold, which has been used as money for millennia. It's a tried and true store of value and is consistent across generations. Some have observed that generational wealth has three components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, land, with interest rates, can you afford land right now? I don't know. It's pretty expensive. Art, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you, one from the other. And precious metals, though, however, something that you can wrap your head around, something that you can evaluate. Gold, platinum, silver, they're practical solutions, and inflation is currently decreasing the value of your cash money. I mean, gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times, and you can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Maybe you have some gold that was given to you and you're not sure what it's worth. Or maybe you're just curious about precious metals and want to learn more. Listen, they were always there to discuss your options and to educate you on the precious metals market. And you should do what I did. Bring in your extra coins. You have some old silver coins laying around or some old coins, find out what they're worth. I mean, I found out a little box I had was worth about $1,600. And you'll find out what your money's worth. Nashville Gold and Coin. Learn more by going to their website, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. 38 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and it is the 4th day of December, 21 shopping days left until Christmas. And you get those stocking stuffers. I hear rumor that I'm getting only coal this year in my stocking, but that's, that's the kind of guy I've been, I suppose. Hey, listen, we got a lot of stuff to talk about with regard to what's happening in the Middle East today. The fighting has begun again inside Gaza. And I'm telling you, I will say this: the Israelis have been tremendously strong in their response, and these buildings are getting knocked down. And I've been to Gaza City. I've gone through the Ares Gate. I know that area. I know that strip of ground there, and I must tell you that it is saddened to see what that city has become. But you cannot blame on any level what the Israelis have done, it seems to me. I mean, there's just no way that you could expect them to absorb what happened on October 7th out of the blue and the horrific actions that were taken against Israeli citizens by Hamas. I mean, the murder of babies. I mean, you can't even hardly let these words, it's so distasteful to say these words. The rape of women by Hamas forces has been well documented now. Everyone is in agreement. This isn't just wartime rhetoric. This actually happened. And the abysmal way that the people who were taken hostage were treated for 51 days before some of them, we still have some there. And you cannot blame on any level what the Israelis have done. Unprovoked attack, and they have every right to go in there and clean out Hamas and do whatever it takes. It's war, and war is not pretty. And sometimes there is collateral damage, and that happens. But why can't the Biden administration simply just stand by one of our longest allies in the Mideast, stand by Israel, and without having to put a but in every sentence? I mean, they'll tell you, well, the Israelis have every right to do what they have done. These were unprovoked attacks and horrendous attacks, blah, 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 blah. And then somewhere down the line say, but, and there's a but. And generally the but has to do, well, you got to be careful. You can't come in too strong. You can't, if you go in too strong, then too many civilians die. Well, I don't want civilians to die. Don't get me wrong. But by the same token, many people inside Gaza are very supportive of Hamas. And they do support him. And this idea that there's a great number of people inside Gaza who don't like Hamas, I think is fallacy. Wartime poll of Gaza and the West Bank residents last month found that the majority, 59%, strongly supported, and 16% supported to some extent, the October 7th attack carried out by Hamas factions. Hamas received the support of 76% of its respondents. The poll is marred somewhat by the fact that there is no free speech in Gaza. By the Palestinian Authority, they don't allow that, but the results are still notable. The majority of the Palestinians who voted for Hamas in the past Palestinian election, that was in the parliamentary elections of 2006. So, the civilian population has been largely supportive of Hamas and the things that they've done. And we've seen the videos of people inside Gaza who cheered the terrorists when they came back and joined in the abusing of the bodies of dead Israelis. It's just so, it's so hard to watch and so reprehensible and so beyond the pale. Why can't the Biden administration simply just say, we're with Israel on this one? And, they didn't do anything to start this thing, but they're certainly going to be there to finish it up. No, there has to be a but. And the but seems to be, we don't want we want the Israelis to go in and do what they have to do, dismantle Hamas, but we don't want them to go too far. And it's this line that they have to walk. Democrats as a large, can't simply say what happened on October 7th was reprehensible, full stop, period, end of statement. Pramila Jayapal, member of Congress, was on one of the Sunday talk shows this weekend and had this to say about, there were rape of women who were taken hostages and yes, Hamas, it's confirmed, committed rapes, but, and then she tries to make some kind of moral equivalence.
Frankly, Morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she caught a lot of flack for that, even among some Democrat circles. Other members of Congress who are Democrats who said, no, that was beyond the pale. There is no moral equivalency here. And they have taken her to task. But at the White House, there is a refusal to condemn the comments of Jayapal. They just won't. Here is Karine Jean-Pierre, who is willing to say that rape is bad, but won't condemn the person who had such a reprehensible comments.
Is that an appropriate comment?
So we've been very, very clear. You heard a little bit from Jake Sullivan about this. I can only speak for the president. That's who I can speak for, and we've been clear. What Hamas did is absolutely reprehensible, and full stop. We're going to continue to be clear about that. And we think about, rape and the use of rape as being used as a weapon. That is also reprehensible, and that's full stop. And I'll just leave it there. And I'm speaking for the President of the United States. So I think I've been very clear on that.
Any comment, though, for Congresswoman Jayapal?
I just commented on it. I just laid out what we believe is unacceptable.
You talked about being against rape. Well, okay, I think everybody's against rape. Come on, we get that. But the person who tried to make moral equivalency out of it is a Democrat, and she couldn't bring herself to say we disagree with the Congresswoman. At least that. She couldn't say it. At the State Department, here's Matt Miller.
We obviously condemn those atrocities and support Israel's actions to hold Hamas accountable for them.
Well, that's pretty strong. But John Kirby is doing this walk. He's walking this line, supporting Israel, but a little squishy in the support.
What's being done with U.S. military and security assistance is helping our friend and partner Israel go after a truly genocidal threat, a threat posed by Hamas. And I think it's just too easy as we get further and further away from the 7th of October to forget what happened on that day. 1,200 Israelis literally slaughtered, kids in front of their parents, parents in front of their kids. And we've got to help Israel eliminate the threat to the Israeli nation and the Israeli people from that threat.
Well, I mean, that's pretty strong, but listen.
From Hamas, and we're going to keep doing that. Absolutely. Now, look, at the same time.
At the same
just
time.
Like you and I have been talking now for a few minutes, we want them to do it in the most careful, cautious, deliberate way possible. How they do it.
Well, hold it. Careful, cautious, and deliberate way. I mean, this is war. Nothing about war is careful, cautious, and deliberate. I mean, you go in there to defeat your enemy, and you do it whatever you have to do to win the fight.
We want them to do it in the most careful, cautious, deliberate way possible. How they do this matters, as Secretary Blinken has said, and we're continuing to work with them. And again, I would stress that the Israelis have been receptive to those messages, and they have actually altered the way they have been conducting some of their operations. Now, I also want to say clearly, too many thousands of individuals, civilians, have been killed. Too many more thousands have been wounded. We have more than 1 million that have been internally displaced in Gaza. We're not blind to the humanitarian crisis, which is why we work so hard to get that pause in place for 7 days so that we can get hostages out and get an accelerated amount of food, water, medicine, and fuel into Gaza. So we're certainly working on the humanitarian plight here. But I think we've got to stay core to what happened on the 7th of October and remember the threat that the Israeli people are still facing from Hamas.
All right, fair enough, but he's walking that line. He's walking that line. Yes, we condemn, but, we don't want this thing to go too far. Can you imagine after 9/11, when there was such a demand that the United States do something, if somebody said, yeah, well, we're going to do a little something, or we're going to try to do something, and we're going to be measured in the way we go about it, I think you would be caught in a great deal of controversy for making such a statement. Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, was talking, and she says, and she seems to be focused, she's like, one of the most important things here is not making sure that Hamas is destroyed, but that we're going to need to rebuild Gaza when this is all over.
Well, as I said, we have to revitalize the Palestinian Authority, which means giving the support that is necessary for good governance. understanding that on the issues that must be resolved as we think of a plan for the day after, it is about good governance, which will bring transparency and accountability to the people of Gaza and the West Bank. It's also about what we need to do to recognize there must be some plan for security for the region, and I suspect as a plan develops, it will take into account interim and then longer term. And finally, what we must do in terms of rebuilding Gaza and a commitment to that.
All right. Well, they have their priorities settled. And what is this all about? Why are they so unwilling to not just come down like a ton of bricks and be 1,000% supportive of Israel instead of asking Israel to pull back, to hold back, to pull its punch? It all has to do with what's happening on the political scene. You see the young people from college campuses. Democrats count on those young people to vote Democrat. And right now, because of this particular issue, I think the young people are misguided, many of them, for believing that Hamas is the victim here. I think Israel was the victim here, and Hamas carried this out in an unprovoked way. That's the way it feels to me. But you may have a different opinion. But I mean, they looking at the young people who see it completely different, and they also look at states like Minnesota and Michigan, where there are a lot of Arab voters. And right now they're irritated with the Biden administration for saying anything positive about Israel. And they're saying that they can't possibly support this president. Will they vote for Donald Trump? I don't know, but they may not vote for Joe Biden. They may just sit on their hands. And the Democrats know that if they lose the Arab vote in places like Michigan and Minnesota, where the votes totals can be so close, you lose young people who are on their feet and screaming about protecting Gaza and Hamas, then you're going to lose a lot of votes, and you can't afford to lose votes. So they're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to walk that line and not be as strong as I think they should be in their support of Israel. Well, they say the right things, but then they also have a but and a however, and on the other hand. So much of that going on right now. 50 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, listen, I want to tell you about an upcoming event at Legend Steakhouse, Johnny Fleeman's place. That's right. His customer appreciation event happening on Monday, December 18th. Show up then. You can buy $100 in gift card on that day and get another $25 in gift cards, another $25 in gift cards. I mean, it's a deal. You spend $100, you get $125 worth of good food at Legend Steakhouse. Now, when's the last time you went to a Legend Steakhouse? Great steaks. Johnny Fleeman's special seasoning on a steak in the evening. There's nothing better. But you might want to think about them also for being a place to go for lunch where they have a meat and two option. It's meat like fried pork chops, smoky mountain meatloaf, fried catfish, slow-cooked pot roast with gravy. And then the sides, 14 vegetables and casseroles to choose from. Broccoli casserole, turnip greens, bourbon glazed apples, fried green tomatoes, potato casseroles, black-eyed peas, to name just a few. This is good cooking like you used to get from Mama. In fact, these recipes came from Johnny's mom. He borrowed the recipe book some 30 years ago and he never got around to giving it back. Legend Steakhouse has multiple locations across Middle Tennessee. Good food at fair prices. LegendSteakhouse.com for locations, and to order online. You're going to love your next visit to Legend Steakhouse.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Just ahead on WTN, a radical idea to flush Hamas fighters out of their tunnels. And a guy who was convicted for posting internet memes gets a reprieve. I'll explain at the top of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's Joan Jones, who is filling in for Mac Maury, who'll be back here tomorrow. Joan and I actually competed against each other in Washington, D.C., and she worked at WTOP, and I worked at WMAL. And she's a veteran broadcaster, and we're very pleased to say that she'll be coming and joining us from time to time here.
Are you saying that I'm old?
Yeah, well, no, listen.
Veteran broadcaster.
Veteran broadcaster. It's just a nice way of saying, well, that's what they call me. He's a veteran broadcaster. He's older than dirt, man. No, I don't mean that. I just mean that you were there a long time, and it's quite a heck of a station that you had there in WTOP, and we're glad to have you in Tennessee now. And glad that you'll be with us from time to time.
Cool, thanks.
You bet. All right. Listen, let's move on. Beacon Capital Management wants you to ask a question. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. I mean, what do you have to lose except for all the worry? Get started today by calling this number, 615-488-9303. And at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, the number, write it down, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
.601 now, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. 52 degrees now. It is cloudy, and the forecast and the latest traffic report are coming up next. At the moment, Israel is contemplating a plan that would flood the tunnels of Gaza with seawater to flush out the Hamas fighters. Already, a system of large pumps have been assembled, and U.S. officials tell the Wall Street Journal that the idea could work, but it could also threaten Gaza's water supply. Meantime, more than 100 people remain hostage in Gaza, including more than half dozen Americans. But their freedom doesn't seem possible after negotiations to extend the ceasefire fell apart last week.
These negotiations had been happening in Doha, and we understand that a top Hamas official has said that any negotiations for hostages were over until the war ends.
That's ABC's Ines de la Cutera. A man, meantime, is accused of being a serial killer, and he's officially been charged now in Los Angeles.
33-year-old Jared Powell is accused of killing a victim a day for 4 days last week until he was captured. Now under arrest, official charges have been filed against Powell, 4 counts of murder along with other charges. If convicted, he faces life in prison. A motive for the crime spree, police say, is not clear. 3 of the victims were homeless and most were sleeping when they were shot. The 4th was an IT worker who was followed home and killed in his garage. Alex Stone, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Locally, a school bus driver was injured, but the students are all okay after a Nashville Metro school bus ran head-on into a Jeep. At about 8:30 this morning, there were 8 Marshall Middle School students on board the bus at the time of the crash at Cane Ridge Road and Century Farms Parkway. The bus driver's injuries were not considered serious. Nashville housing costs too much. It's hard to get, and it's causing workers to bail out of the job market. That's what business leaders at the Boyd Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Tennessee had to say. In a poll, 85% of business leaders also said that they have had to offer higher wages because of inflation. And a man who was convicted of election interference for posting memes that mocked Hillary Clinton and Democratic voters has gotten a break from an appellate judge who granted him a chance to appeal. Douglas Mackey is his name. He tells Fox News that the ruling hints that his appeal has merit and his conviction could be vacated. Douglas Mackey had been sentenced to 7 months in prison and a $15,000 fine in October. That is the latest news. Weather and traffic are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Hey, good evening, everyone. 8 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, the last hour of the drive on this 4th day of December. Man, we're headed toward the holiday season, 21 shopping days, and make sure you got your cards in the mail, your packages mailed, whatever. You got to get that done early. I'm getting coal, I hear. That's apparently the word has come down. You know, you're just going to get coal. I thought I was a pretty good boy, but we'll see. I got a lot of stuff I want to cover here. First of all, let's talk very quickly. I've been trying to push, in the 6 o'clock hour, a lot of times I have these stories that I've been trying to get to, but they just haven't fit into what I was trying to do. We like to think of ourselves as the king of blends. We segue a story. Joan, you know all about this thing called segueing. No, she's busy right now, but you try to blend one story to the next, but it's hard to do sometimes. And sometimes you just got to throw one out there and say, this didn't fit, but it's important. I want you to hear about it. Jake Sullivan, the president's national security advisor, talking about the need for more funding for Ukraine. Controversial thing in that there are now Republicans who've signed off. I mean, it's been a bipartisan support to send a lot of money to Ukraine. But that I would have to say that the support for that has softened quite a bit. And now it's not clear whether or not the House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, but just barely, would come up with enough votes to support funding, sending more money to Ukraine. The fighting there is not over, but the funding, well, it's sort of a hard thing to call right now. Will they get the funding they need? Here is Jake Sullivan talking about that.
On Ukraine, as you've all seen earlier today, OMB Director Shalanda Young sent a letter to congressional leaders, which Karine was just referencing, explaining that without congressional action, the administration will run out of resources by the end of the year to procure more weapons and equipment for Ukraine and to provide equipment from U.S. military stocks without impacting our own military readiness. The resources Congress has provided for Ukraine and other national security needs have halted Russia's advances in Ukraine, helped Ukraine achieve significant military victories, including taking back more than 50% of the territory that Russia had previously occupied, and by revitalizing our own defense industrial base, jumpstarting and expanding production lines, and supporting good-paying jobs across the country. Now it's up to Congress. Congress has to decide whether to continue to support the fight for freedom in Ukraine as part of the 50-nation coalition that President Biden has built, or whether Congress will ignore the lessons we've learned from history and let Putin prevail. It is that simple. It is that stark a choice. And we hope that Congress, on a bipartisan basis, will make the right choice.
Well, it's not clear what's going to happen up on Capitol Hill. And he was asked the question, are you saying that anybody who says they don't want to support more money for Ukraine is basically a supporter of Putin? And he pretty much said, yeah, that's what I am saying. Well, in fact, I have it here. I just found it. Here's the soundbite. Here's what he's saying.
Saying that any member of Congress who votes against aid to Ukraine is voting for Putin?
I believe that any member of Congress who does not support funding for Ukraine is voting for an outcome that will make it easier for Putin to prevail. That is, a vote against supporting Ukraine is a vote to improve Putin's strategic position. That's just an inescapable reality. That's not speaking to someone's motive, why they chose to vote against it. That's just speaking to the outcome of their vote. A vote against supplemental funding for Ukraine will hurt Ukraine and help Russia. It will hurt democracy and help dictators. And we think that that is not the right lesson of history, and that every member, Democrat and Republican, should vote to support this.
Now, I've listened to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, talk about this, and he seems to be saying, you know what, I'm not sure that there's going to be support. And what he's giving is not necessarily his own personal opinion, although I'm not sure I know what his personal opinion is. It's simply pointing out that I'm not sure I can get that through the House of Representatives. And I'm not sure we'd be willing to go down that path. He doesn't want to take a vote that he can't win. And so we'll see how that all works out. I'm not sure that the bipartisan support is as strong as it once was. That's my sense. I don't know. I know that a lot of people within the sound of my voice think we shouldn't spend another dollar on sending it to Ukraine, that Ukraine is, not the nice guys that we think they are. I hear this all the time from folks. that, Zelensky, not necessarily the beacon of democracy that the rest of the world would like us to believe that he is. I simply look at this from a different standpoint, and I'm on the bubble, but I find merit in the argument that by sending money, we are degrading Russia's military, and that is happening. I mean, I saw a thing the other day, you wouldn't believe how many tanks have been taken out. And we're finding a lot out about Russia that maybe they weren't all that in a bag of chips, their military. And so, what's the old saying? The enemy of your friend, what is it? Your friends' enemies you're a friend with the people who are enemies of your friends.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
The enemy, golly, I got that all backwards. The enemy of the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mason. You helped the old guy out.
Yeah, you had a long way around it, but you said the same thing.
But the bottom line is, I think there's some merit into actually degrading the Russian military without putting American lives at risk. I wish we have not been so weak in Afghanistan. Had we not been weak in Afghanistan, the Biden administration, the deplorable way they handled that withdrawal, I don't think Putin would have been emboldened. I wish that the thing had never started, but that ship has sailed. And, what are we supposed to do when somebody just invades a whole nother country? And if we don't support the Ukrainians in that battle, what's next? Poland? Because if you look at what Putin is trying to do, he's trying to put the old band back together. He's trying to put together the old Soviet Union, like nothing more. He's taken a big hit here. There's some speculation that he may be wearying of the fight, and that that maybe so. I don't know. Do we continue to support Ukraine? They're not necessarily the greatest people in the world. I mean, I don't mean the people of Ukraine, but I'm talking about the leadership. But there's been a lot of cases in America where we have supported people that weren't very nice because it was in our national strategic interest to do so. And the enemy of your enemy is your friend. The enemy of my enemy is your friend. Thank you, golly. I've only said that about 1,000 times. I don't know why.
Hey, you're getting it.
I know. Thank you. I need all the help I can get. So there's that. Let's move on from that one now. To talk about something else that Sullivan said today. American troops are coming under attack, and so are ships at sea. And a lot of people, in that particular region of the world right now, a lot of the bad actors are in Yemen. But I mean, we're also coming under attack in other places where United States troops have bases, etc. Because of our support of Israel and other things, they're coming under attack. And now the Houthi rebels in Yemen apparently trying to disrupt shipping. 15% of shipping in the world goes through this narrow choke point that Yemen can have an impact on. And we've got military ships out there who are taking out drones. Here's Sullivan talking about that, taking out the drones, which were launched from Yemen. But honestly, we're talking about the source of these drones is Iran.
As DOD has relayed, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Carney responded to the distress calls from these ships and provided assistance. In doing so, it detected 3 UAVs at 3 different times heading in its direction, and it took action against all 3 of those UAVs. As CENTCOM reported this weekend, we cannot assess at this time whether the Carney was a target, but the Carney took prudent action in taking down those 3 UAVs. And we will continue as we go forward to consult very closely with allies and partners to determine and take all appropriate responses. We have every reason to believe that these attacks, while they were launched by the Houthis in Yemen, were fully enabled by Iran. Any ship they shoot at, whether it's Israeli-owned or has some connection in the past to Israel, that doesn't make it any more of a justifiable target under international law than if the ship didn't have ties to Israel. But some of these ships, we believe, may not have, although I don't want to give you a definitive answer on that because we have to continue to run that to ground. In addition to that, the position of the United States, consistent with the position of the UN Security Council and consistent with the position of maritime nations across the world, is that attacks on commercial shipping in international waters are totally unacceptable and have to stop. And what we are doing now is engaging in intensive consultations with partners and allies to determine the appropriate next steps. The last point I should make is just to underscore something I said in my opening statement. We are talking about the Houthis here. They're the ones with their finger on the trigger. But that gun, the weapons here are being supplied by Iran. And Iran, we believe, is the ultimate party responsible for this.
I mean, what are U.S. forces doing in the region, trying to bring stability to the region, not necessarily getting involved directly in the fight between Israel and Gaza and the Hamas, but to basically keep other players at bay. The other players are all supported by Iran, proxy forces throughout the region. And not only are they there to keep the other proxies from entering the fray, like, from the north, Hezbollah, etc. They are there to also as a warning to Iran. But Iran is still acting badly, and a lot of these proxies are attacking U.S. forces in the region. They continue to be a real problem in the region. And so, our men and women there in the region, whether they're on ships or in some of the areas like Syria and Iraq, all of those places where they have bases, have come under attack repeatedly. So far, we've been able to fend off those attacks with very limited casualty. There have been people who have been injured. To my knowledge, no deaths. But I will tell you that, this is going to be something that we need to watch very closely. Because our people out there, we don't talk about it enough, but our people in that region right now are in the battle zone, and they are coming in attack from proxies, Iranian proxies in the region. And so, keep an eye on that. We don't want that thing to spiral out of control. All right, it's 20 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Folks over at Busy Bee HVAC, listen, cold weather is here. The last thing you need is to have have your heat turn off or not work because it's cold weather. But listen, if you call the folks at Busy Bee, here's the number, 615-775-7833. They will buzz right over to your hive and get you back up and running in short order. Listen, Busy Bee's the company I would call. And, the way you avoid having problems is that you do a thing that's called preventative maintenance. And that really is what the Beehive Club is all about. The Beehive Club, it costs you $99 to get into the Beehive Club. That's where they start. And for that, you'll get 3 thorough maintenance on your services, on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. You'll get no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner for satisfaction guaranteed. Call the folks I would call. Call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, or online at busybeehvac.com.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee, right at home in the woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
Up ahead on WTN, what congressional Republicans demand if Democrats get more money for Ukraine. And stocks had a rough day today on Wall Street. We've got that and more at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair here for about another half hour and change before we hand it over to Mark Levin, so he carries on through the rest of the evening. The governor of Texas is responding to a decision by the courts that said those barriers that they're putting in the water, those floating pontoons, the big orange things that they float on the water to stop the people from coming across the river. Well, the courts have said that they cannot do that because it's supposed to be a navigable river. Navigable. It's a hard word to say. Try doing that on the radio. Navigable. But one way or the other, Abbott is saying that the courts have gotten it wrong, and he's going to appeal the whole thing. Here is Governor Jim Abbott, Governor Abbott from Texas, state of Texas, talking about that this weekend.
Listen, with all due respect, the appeals court got it wrong, and the reason is because they relied upon a law more than 100 years old, saying that we could not deploy these buoys in the water, preventing people from entering the United States illegally, because the waterway is categorized as a navigable waterway, which is absurd because it is not navigable by definition when you have literally thousands of people able to walk across it every single day. It's not used for transportation of boats up and down that riverway, and so it's completely not navigable. We had a majority Democrats who were on that panel making that decision, what Texas is going to be doing, and we will be seeking what's called an en banc ruling by the entire Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And if we lose there, we will be taking that to the United States Supreme Court because we know Texas has the right to legally deploy those buoys in the water to prevent people from entering our country and our state illegally.
So you're not backing down, and you're prepared to take this all the way up to the Supreme Court then?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me get your take on the assessment today of the southern border. We know that we've seen new numbers of would-be terrorists coming through. What can you tell us about the apprehensions today? Is it the worst it's been, or has it been alleviated a bit?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things very interesting. For one, the problem is extraordinarily bad. The numbers are high, and it's because Joe Biden continues to lay out the welcome mat, welcoming illegal immigrants into the United States of America. That said, what we've seen in our numbers in the state of Texas is because of the wall that we have built, because of these razor wire barriers that we have built, Texas is now no longer the #1 illegal entry point. It is the Tucson sector, the San Diego sector, and other states. And Texas is causing the cartels to have to alter their routes, their routes where people are coming across the border illegally. That said, Texas is having to step up and do even more to make sure that we deny illegal entry into the state of Texas. And as a result, Maria, in 2 weeks, I'll be signing a new law in the state of Texas that will make it illegal for people to enter the state of Texas from another country illegally, and authorizing every peace officer in the state of Texas to arrest those people entering our country illegally.
We owe Greg.
What you just said is so critical. Telling.
There we go. Sorry. We owe Greg Abbott a word of thanks. Governor Abbott has stepped up in the state of Texas, where the federal government has failed us on the border. And I do hope they take this all the way to the Supreme Court. I do think the lower courts got it wrong, and it is my hope that in time that will be overturned, and that'll be settled law. Why in the world should the state of Texas not do everything it can to keep from being invaded when the federal government, whose responsibility it is lacking in that response? They're not doing the things that need to be done to protect our border, and it's out of control, and it's dangerous to you and me here in Tennessee and all over the country. There is a risk that America is facing because of these uncontrolled, unsecured borders. So I hope Greg Abbott stays on it. And again, a word of thanks to the governor for doing what the federal government is supposed to do, but doesn't do. And I hope that they are successful in getting those court rulings overturned. So there you have that. A lot going on in the state of Texas, and the border situation, I got to be honest with you, as bad perhaps as it's ever been. We're not hearing much about it because other things are taking a priority, and the story is the same. It's the same every day, and after a while, there's a fatigue that sets in when a story just is the same every day. People lose interest. We should not lose interest because it is still a horrible thing happening on our southern border and putting this country at great risk with all of the elements that are coming across that border that we don't know anything about. The fentanyl is coming across. How many terrorists are getting across? There are 1.8 million people who've come across the border that never had any contact, not one bit of contact with any kind of law enforcement. They came across, and we don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're up to. But my thinking is that some of them up to no good. 6:30 now on Super Talk 99.7.
Yes, 6:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. It's 51 degrees with clouds now. We've got the big chill coming tonight. We've got the full weather forecast and the latest traffic coming up. The Biden administration is urging Congress to pass a so-called supplemental funding bill that would add more money for Ukraine, Israel, and others. Democrats say that talks are being stalled by Republicans who want immigration restrictions included in that bill if they get the money.
Republicans know that national security begins with border security.
That's Republican leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, who says Democrats who oppose border security are wasting time. Israel has an idea to flood the tunnels that run under Gaza with seawater to flush out the remaining Hamas fighters. They've already set up a system of pumps to get the operation going. A scary scene in Spring Hill today when a gas line ruptured, sending a plume of fire into the air. It happened at a construction site, and amazingly, nobody was injured. The gas has since been shut off, and the scene there was marked safe late this afternoon. Well, it was a sea of red on Wall Street today.
Stocks end the week broadly higher as the market comes off its best month in more than a year. The Dow soared 295 points, and NASDAQ added 79 for the session, and the S&P closed up 27. Industrials were among the day's winners. Construction equipment maker Caterpillar rose 2.5%. Railroad Union Pacific was up 3%. Investors start December on track to close out the year with solid gains. The S&P is up almost 20%. The NASDAQ up 36% for the year. The rally coming on growing expectations among investors that the Federal Reserve could cut interest rates as soon as early next year.
That's Daria Albinger from ABC News. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Joan Jones on WTN News.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee. woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
It's 6:37 on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and bringing you news and information you can use here on Super Talk 99.7. Remind you that Thursday at this time we'll be over at the Cedar Creek Marina from 4 to 8 p.m. We're doing an extra added hour. All the guys will be there. Everybody's crashing the boards. Dan Mandis, we got Chris is going to be there. Matt's going to be there. I'm going to be there as we broadcast live. And here's the great news. Doesn't cost you a penny. All you got to do is show up. Just show up. Cedar Creek Marina at Scoreboards, 4 to 8 Thursday. Be there, be square. Details can be found at 997WTN.com. I mean, the way this is going to work is I'm going to start the thing, over here in Bucolic, Watertown. And then the guys will all be over there 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And at some point, they'll take over while I drive over to join them in Mount Juliet. And then we'll go all the way till 8 o'clock. And so it's going to be a good thing. Again, no tickets, no cost. First come, first serve. Love to see you there. Last time we did an event in Mount Juliet, had a great turnout, and I'm sure it'll be that way again on Thursday. Looking forward to seeing some of the folks who listen to this program. Always so nice. A federal judge has struck down a ban on handgun sales to certain Americans. A long-standing ban on handgun sales for people 18 to 20 years old has been overturned by a judge. A federal judge overturned a ban on licensed firearm dealers selling pistols to adults under 21, saying the rule is unconstitutional. This comes from Judge Thomas Clay in his ruling on December 1st, said that based on his interpretation of the text of the First and Fourth Amendments, found that Second Amendment does not exclude 18 to 20-year-olds, meaning the court can discern no reason to read an implicit age restriction into the Second Amendment text. Now, this comes, and the ruling drew heavily from the U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year in Brune that required gun control laws to have a basis in historical tradition. The top court, in its order, struck down a New York law and determined it to be unconstitutional, affirming an individual's right to carry a pistol in public under the Second Amendment. His order stipulated that under Brune, to justify a regulation, the government may not simply posit that the regulation promotes an important interest. The government, the judge said, has to demonstrate that challenge statutes are constitutionally permissible under Brune. That high court ruling has really been interesting. The fallout from that over time has been a stronger adherence to, I think, the founders' idea about a Second Amendment. And again, that happening, this judge, by the way, based in West Virginia. Gold hit an all-time high today. It was up around, $2,135 per troy ounce. But then it slipped a little bit. There was a sell-off, and it ended the day at $2,025. But for a while, it was there at the highest level it has ever been, as I understand it. And so that, it's interesting that gold's on the uptick. While, by the way, stocks were down a little bit today. The last month, November, was a good month for stocks. It was a pretty good, strong month for stocks. And December started out pretty strong, but now the question is, are we going to see interest rates drop or now? The markets are all watching to see what the Fed's going to do. And Jerome Powell, the person in charge of the Fed, said basically recently that he thinks we don't want to get too optimistic about lowering interest rates. That might not happen for a time. They may not go any higher, but they're not going to go down for a while, is the guidance that Jerome Powell gave. The markets are a little more worried about that now. They thought maybe interest rate cuts were coming in the offing. And so it apparently is not going to be the case, but we'll watch it very closely. The Biden administration, according to the Daily Caller, has implemented a policy that could jack up your food prices. And it has to do, of all things, with jet fuel. What am I talking about, Wilson? Have you lost your mind? Well, let me see if I can help you connect the dots here. The Biden administration, according to the Daily Caller, is set to announce regulatory guidance on subsidies for corn-based sustainable aviation fuel that would end up hiking food prices and, by the way, incentivizing practices that damage the environment. Everybody, I think that using corn to make fuel is about one of the dumbest things we do in America. And I know that when you have to run for, election and the election starts in Iowa, everybody wants to be on the side of using corn to make fuel. But it really is not in a very efficient way, nor is it all of that. Are there that many environmental upsides, quite frankly? It's rough on the land. It also causes food prices to go up. Corn-based ethanol aviation fuel could have environmental and economic hidden costs that cause more problems than it solves, according to some experts. Reliance on corn-based ethanol aviation fuel is not going to do much for global warming, but it will do quite a lot to benefit the renewable fuel industry. It will also indirectly benefit corn prices. Corn going up. There are a lot of things that happen when the price of corn goes up. The price of the feed that you use to normally, the corn you use to feed animals, that causes your meat prices to go up. And there are other things as well. And by the way, again, as I said, if you really dig into it, aviation or ethanol fuels are not maybe the best thing to do environmentally. I've never been a big fan of them, but one way or the other, now that there's going to be this push to, think about the other thing. This stuff is more expensive. So ethanol-based, corn-based fuel to fly you around the country is going to cost more. That means the prices of travel are going to go up. The prices of transportation are going to go up, et cetera. So, keep an eye on that one. The Biden administration keeps doing things to move away from fossil fuels, but some of those things are expensive, and some of those things are going to cost you in the long run. The matchup has been announced for the 26th annual Trans Perfect Music City Bowl to happen in Nashville later this month. College football plans, college fans are making plans to head to Nashville for the annual Music Bowl, the 26th year of this holiday tradition. The game will match Auburn against Maryland. The Terps and Auburn, expected to be a big economic boost for the area. Has produced about $400 million in direct economic impact since its inception. So a good thing for the city here as we host the Music Bowl, and it will be Auburn versus Maryland, and that'll be a good one to watch. Okay. Tennessee Titans had bad news with the outcome of the game against the Indianapolis Colts. But I got to tell you, they've got some other problems. Derrick Henry is injured, but the word on that is he's been removed from Sunday's. He was removed from Sunday's game to be evaluated for a concussion. Vrabel said today that Derrick Henry's doing great, doesn't have any symptoms. He's not in the protocol as of now. They'll monitor how he's feeling, but a good chance I think Derrick Henry will be back. Jeffrey Simmons, he's apparently going to be out a little longer. That's the bad news. Then there's the problem about our punter, Ryan Stonehouse, who got a big, ugly hit in the game and had to be replaced by Nick Folk. Can you imagine? You know, you're a punter, and you got your punters and you got your kickers. And the punter goes down. They turn to the kicker and say, "Hey, Nick, we need you to be the punter as well." Nick had never kicked a punt in the history of his career in the NFL, and he's been around for a while. So he goes out there, and you know, the thing is that Stonehouse would normally be the placeholder for Folk on point after attempts, right? Well, he can't play, so they turn to Tannehill to go out there and catch the ball and place it for the point after touchdown, the PAT. And it didn't go so well. They missed one, made another, but it was just a sort of a crazy, wild game. I mean, there were a lot of turnovers and there was a pick six, and then there was fumbles. It was just an ugly, ugly, ugly game. And at the end of it all, Vrabel came out today and said he had fired the special teams coordinator, Craig Aukerman.
A conversation with Craig Aukerman of we're going to move on and make a change there in their leadership on the special teams unit. I'm excited about the possibility of Tom Quinn leading that group. Tom's going to take over those duties. Brings a lot of experience and knowledge. He's a great teacher, and so hopefully, we'll be able to, continue the stuff that we've done well, which there has been some plenty of things in there that we've done well, and hopefully, eliminate those mistakes that cost you. So I want to thank Craig for what he's done for us, certainly in the time that I've been here. But I felt like this was the best thing for the team and for players moving forward.
All right, that's Vrabel today. And then there's this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what to tell you. There are two kinds of people in the world. There are dog people and there are cat people. And that is a small subset of dog and cat people. New study suggests that having a pet cat increases your risk of getting schizophrenia. Experts say it could be due to toxic parasites that the pets carry. Could owning a cat double your risk of getting schizophrenia? That's the conclusion of a new review of 17 studies by researchers from the University of Queensland, Australia. The team conducted a meta-analysis of existing research from 11 countries, including the U.S. and the U.K., published over 44 years. So this is a study of studies. They found individuals exposed to cats before the age of 25, are you ready for this? Had approximately twice the odds of developing schizophrenia. In the paper, scientists posed that the link is likely due to a parasite found in pet cats called, and I'm going to try this, Toxoplasma gondii, known as T. gondii, which can enter the body via a bite. They say the parasite can enter the central nervous system and affect neurotransmitters in the brain, leading to personality changes, psychotic symptoms, psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia. One U.S. study included in the review, based on 354 students, found no association between cat ownership and scores of schizophrenia on the schizophrenia scale. However, when compared to those bitten by a cat to those not bitten, the bitten subgroup had higher scores on the scale. So if you have a cat and the cat has bitten you at one time or another, drawn blood, there is the possibility that you have picked up this parasite that left untreated, or most people don't know they've got it, eventually could lead to you having a case of schizophrenia. I mean, I've always said that cats can drive you crazy. Now there's actually some truth to it, according to this study of studies done in Queensland. And then let's wrap this up because, I mean, this is a weird one. You know, we know that, the north and south. North and south, it's all, the magnetic fields of the Earth. The North Pole is north and South Pole south, but you know what? They may flip. Did you know this? That magnetic fields of the Earth have flipped over time? Had completely flipped 180 degrees. And this is important because it plays a big role in protecting people from hazardous radiation and geomagnetic activity. Scientists have studied and tracked the motion of the magnetic poles for centuries, and the recent movements of these poles indicate a change in the global geometry of the Earth's magnetic field. It may even suggest the beginning of a field reversal. North will become south, and south will become north. Cats and dogs will lie down together. It'll be something. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. You'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month, and for that you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, if you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, it could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They'll see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. Grace Point wants you to know they believe strongly in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccines for you and your children. You can get COVID testing and treatment there. Grace Point Healthcare, Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.